I promise you guys, a new intro is coming your way. Hopefully, before Olin retires in 20 years. Hopefully, before that.
Oh, God, I hope it's sooner than that.
The intro or the retirement? Okay. Welcome in, TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Today is Tuesday, August the 15th, middle of the month. Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Maroon never looks so good with Maroon U. He is Olin Buchanan, wearing a yellow shirt.
I'm in first place.
Tour de France.
Yeah.
There you are. Last time I wore a yellow shirt.
You were in first place.
I was in last place that day.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, I heard from a lot of people. Opie, some stuff to get into. So we can now discuss the Donovan Green injury. Unfortunately, done for the year. The easy thing that people say is, when I say easy, it's true, but it's an easy go-to. Very deep room. If it's going to happen, that's a position where you feel pretty good. Unproven good in some areas, but you do feel pretty good. Huge loss, though, especially for a guy who started last year, who made a lot of big plays for him. Bright future, too.
I'm really sad for him.
Yep.
And then I'm sad for A&M because he's a good player that had proved it. And you just touched on it. You can say you have a deep room, but until you see guys actually play well, how deep is it?
Right.
You know, you don't want to look at, jump into a pool thinking that there's plenty of water, and then it turns out it's only a foot deep because you just don't know, right? Now, like what I saw from Max Wright, I think we all did, and he's coming back from a minor, I think he had a little toe issue, but he's back in practice. Jake Johnson has a great track, potential, as does, Thor.
Right.
Theo. But I saw it from Donovan Green. I saw him actually play. It wasn't, hey, this guy can do that in theory. Thank you. It was in practice. Well, not practice in the game, but
practice.
It's a game. So yeah, maybe they are going to absorb that loss of him.
Look, you've got guys that have the ability. Now they just have to go do it. One thing, the only hesitation I have with Jake is, can he stay healthy? Because we haven't seen it yet. But people get injured. Jimbo said it. In fact, let's hear from Jimbo, because this is, knock on wood, through, entering the third week of camp, or I guess third week of camp, right? People are going to get injured all around the country. It is what it is, and he feels pretty good about where they are, at least right now. Here's Jimbo Fisher.
No, unfortunately, it's a part of this game that happens, and you got to look at the long haul. I always say this: we're in such an instant gratification world, which is cruel. We want, and kids should. I want to play now. I want to do good, which is what you should. The urgency to go get ready to play. But you got to remember, it's when you walk out of here. And one thing you've learned about medical issues, the medical staffs and just medical treatment period across the world has gotten so much better over time that I can remember when an ACL, when you were my age, an ACL, you probably never played again, or you were lucky, or it was a now they come back a lot of times even stronger. You know what I mean? Just understand it can be very disheartening and things that go. But remember, there's a long thing, and he's a young guy that you can come back from those things. And there's been huge numbers of guys that have done it, and you got to always keep that in their head. And I think you got to keep them engaged in your team. That's why you can't get them when they get their treatments, but they're in meetings. You travel with them, you take them with you, and use their advice. And I tell you what, sometimes, what they've got to do is sit back sometimes and sit and practice like a coach and be by the coaches. And then when you see things to a coach's eye, some of the things that, it's like your parents. You used to think they nagged you to death, or coaches are nagging you and driving you. That's not very important. When you sit back and look at how that happens in a practice, and you're sitting there with the coach, and you say, now in the big picture of things, how that affects this and this, sometimes it can help you even grow as a player. So, that's what he's got to do, and we're going to keep him engaged, and you hate for that for him, but, that unfortunately, that's part of anything you do. There's an injury could happen.
One name. Oh, go ahead.
Well, everything he said is true as far as seeing the big picture if you're over by the coaches and coming back even stronger, and all those things are true. But by gosh, you have to look at it as how does it affect this year? Because I think all Aggies are tired of the whole, it's the future's going to be okay. The future's going to be, he's going to come back. What's he going to be when he leaves? what is going to happen at that position this year?
There is no real future, I think, if you have another terrible year, right? Like, I mean, of course there's always a future, but this whole idea of next season being great, I mean, if you have back-to-back bad years, but I'm not even allowing my mind to go there because I think they're going to be so significantly improved. And a name that I don't think we say enough when it comes to this, at least, is Max Wright. Max Wright, a lot of experience, and a guy that at least, if there are some unknowns, I think he's a pretty good known.
I think Max Wright is a good, solid player.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you could put him out there and feel pretty good about what you're going to get. I remember his touchdown against South Carolina last year where he just fought his way into the end zone and reached the ball over. You know, Max is a good, solid player. Max isn't as good as Donovan Green, especially as the receiver, especially as a catch-and-run guy. Now, I do remember him looking really good in 2020 on a touchdown catch-and-run against South Carolina.
Right.
But he's just not. Now, does that mean that if you put him in there, that tight end is suddenly a gross liability? No. I'm just saying you want to be able to put the best team you can put out there.
100%. But I think, as we learned last year and we've seen before, it's not necessarily about the talent. Talent is a big part of it once it all clicks. But when you're young and inexperienced, you may be – look at the 2020 team. There were some guys on that O-line that were not as talented as some of the guys that they had on their O-line last year, yet they worked as a veteran unit together. And I think the experience factor, the age factor goes a long way when you're playing against a lot of kids.
Except that Donovan actually played.
He did play.
And played well. Now, is Max a better blocker than Donovan? Well, based on last year, I'd say. Now, we won't know what kind of strides Donovan made in the blocking aspect of the game. Maybe he made great strides, maybe not. But we know what he could do as a receiver. I can still remember him sliding across the ground to pick one just off the turf for a big first down against Arkansas. I mean, he's a good player, and I think he'll be missed unless a Jake Johnson or a Thor, gets his opportunity and really emerges.
Well, yeah, and let's not forget, there's another youngster in that group too, Jaden Blatt, right?
And
Fernando
Garza.
Yep, there's some dudes there with different skill set. I'm excited to see what Jake Johnson can do as a receiver, though. I mean, he is a big, strong receiver.
Well, he wouldn't have been a top 100 player coming out of high school if he couldn't catch the ball, right? Mm-hmm. And so yeah, but and I can understand looking at it and say, okay, I hate to lose Donovan. We're okay there, right? I understand someone says that, but because you think of what Jake Johnson is projected to be.
Yep.
I'm just saying I personally am more comfortable when I have seen the production more than the projection.
I feel that. Let's do this because we got a lot of stuff jam-packed in this hour. Let's do the Apex Performance of the Week. This is an easy one, OB, because there's not a lot going on, but there's one thing going on in the state of Texas that's going really, really well. This is presented by Apex Health. If you feel like you're losing your edge, it could be low testosterone. Increase your energy, sharpen your focus, and boost your performance with a custom treatment plan from Apex Health. Learn more at apexhealthclinic.com. The Apex Health Clinic is owned and operated by a veteran serving the Brazos Valley. All right, I have the Texas Rangers on there. They're winners of 8 of 10. Last night, they absolutely dismantled the Angels for wherever they're from. 12-0, I believe, was the score. Max Scherzer, he's a guy that goes on the list. 7 innings, 1 hit ball, 11 strikeouts. Marcus Semien, 2 for 5, and a 3-run homer, 5 RBI on the game.
Yeah, they're playing really well. I think they've actually won like 11 of 12 of 14, something like that. And yet I still don't believe it because I just grew up with that team.
Yeah.
I will say this. They've won 71 games at mid-August. I have lived through so many years where they didn't win 71 games for the whole season. So maybe it's just my version of battered Ranger syndrome.
Well, I'll say this about them, too. They're doing it with the Astros not playing bad. They're not playing as well as the Rangers. Astros won 6 out of their last 10, and they just lost yesterday to Florida. And the Mariners hot as well at 7-3. So they're doing it as other teams are playing well and increasing their lead. How long ago was it? Was it where the Astros had a half-game lead? 2 weeks ago?
Did the Astros ever take the
I think
lead?
It was just for half a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 3.5. That can change in a week. So again, like I said, it's battered Ranger syndrome for me. You know what? I know it was a week ago last Sunday, so it's been 9 days.
Yep.
But my apex guy is still Bobby Petrino for this, the way he owned that press conference.
Bobby Petrino.
He just owned it.
He did.
Didn't he come away feeling better about everything?
This is how I know I feel better. Because it wasn't just Aggies coming away.
Yeah.
It was like the national media, like, dude. Because they wanted to make fun of Bobby Petrino.
Right.
They couldn't wait for their opportunity, right? And they're like, man, he knocked it out the park. It's home run. Like, you can't. He put a clinic on how to answer questions. You could tell he's an old veteran coach.
Yeah.
He knew what he was doing.
Oh, by the way, speaking of Arkansas, Bobby Petrino and his ties to Arkansas. Did you see the terrible news?
Terrible news, yeah.
Alex Collins.
Yeah.
Was a good
Motorcycle
running back
ride,
for
I
that
think it was.
motorcycle accident. And, you know, that's two former great players for them that have passed away within the last, month or so?
Brian Mallett, I think it was the beginning of summer.
Yeah. Well, that's so unfortunate.
All right, let's go and, by the way, if you want to text the show, you can do that, 979-693-1150. How do you feel about the depth there at the tight end position and about the playmakers that they have? We have that and a lot more, and I got some AP top 25 thoughts as well. Let's go behind the glass and say hello to Nick Savage. Nick, good morning, sir.
Good morning, y'all. How's it going?
It's going well, buddy.
I
What's
didn't
going
say
on?
howdy, sorry. If Dalton, you're watching, don't be mad at me. He put up a light, and I forgot to turn it on. So, but yeah, nothing. How are y'all doing this morning?
Wait, he put up a light?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Hold on.
This is good radio. This is what I call great
there's
radio.
Dalton put up a light.
Yeah, like like a Christmas tree light. Like,
Okay, how about now? A little
it
brighter?
looks a little blue. Can we change
Yeah, it looks very blue.
Well, I mean, it's white.
It's like you're at Kmart. It's a blue light special.
Well,
he doesn't know what that means.
that's what we're getting. No, I don't actually.
he does.
I'm just so old that everything I reference has no.
OB, I got to tell you about being old.
Okay, tell me.
When I moved here, I didn't think I was old. And I know, depending on who you're with, like, it determines if you're old or not, right? When I go to jiu-jitsu class, everybody is, in at least the white belt class, is either 18 to 25.
Okay.
And usually people think, oh, you look young for your age. Not there. They know I'm a grandpa in that environment. It is absolutely like, they're like, oh, yeah, you're doing good for an old guy. Like, that's, and in this community in College Station, I feel so old.
Yeah, well, it's a college town. That tends to happen.
Well, Bubba Bush, who runs Brazos Valley MMA, he made a joke about Suzanne Summers yesterday, when he's teaching. Nobody in class understood.
Over the head.
And I told him, I was like, I got that joke. And he's like, thank you. One person in class got the joke, but it was something about your legs. And what was that thing that she endorsed?
The Thigh Master.
Thigh Master. He was making a joke about the Thigh Master and some moo weird.
I always kind of was partial to Janet.
I could see you being a Janet guy. Well, she's a partier.
More of about brunettes,
Do you have any idea what we're talking about?
No, they have no idea.
No.
Suzanne
not
Summers?
a clue.
Janet?
No.
Jack Tripper?
No.
Mr. Furley?
No, sir.
You have any of those guys?
No, just absolutely.
They're
nothing.
icons.
What was the married couple's name?
Oh, Larry. No, not Larry. Larry was the partier.
Yeah, the married couple that owned the apartment.
God, not Mr. Furley.
Roper.
The Ropers.
Yeah.
These are like icons in America, my friend.
I'll do my research.
But they don't even know I Love Lucy. So how would they know Three's Company?
They know everybody knows I Love Lucy. I mean, I wasn't born in the 50s. I know is it the 50s?
Yeah.
Do you know I Love Lucy?
Yes, I've heard
Okay,
about
I'll give you
Lucy.
that one. All right then.
Yeah.
Hey, well, what are y'all thinking about the AP poll? Came out a little bit after we were off air. A&M comes in at 23. A few teams ahead of A&M that I'm like, why? Oklahoma being one of them. Oregon State being one of them. I know it's preseason.
No,
it doesn't
here
matter.
it is.
But
it's just content for somebody.
True.
It means, not only does it mean absolutely nothing, or is that the right way to phrase it?
Yeah,
it doesn't mean
fine.
anything. Nobody has a methodology that matches up. Some people are basing it on seriously. I haven't studied Oklahoma enough to have an educated opinion on where they should be on the list. Okay, I just think they suck. That's just my opinion. I'm sorry, just because they were bad last year, they should be a little better. But why are they 20?
Why should they be better?
Why should they be better? I just think they'll be better because it's year 2, and I use that logic, right? Okay. And I think their quarterback will be better. And it's the Big 12, brother.
It's a big. It's intramurals, brother.
Right. So
Dan Hawkins would change his rant today.
Right.
He'd be saying it's the Big 12, brother. go play intramurals. It might be tougher.
Right. But the truth is, it's just some people are going to base it on last year.
Yeah.
Some people are going to base it on the recruiting class
Some
without ever seeing them play.
Some base it on name.
Yeah. I'm not saying I disagree with the top 4. Do you remember what it is? It's obviously Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and Alabama. I'm not saying.
And LSU 5.
Could you have done that exact same poll last year the exact same way and nobody would bat an eye?
I don't care who's in front of A&M. I don't care. I would not had an issue at all if A&M's unranked, because I've said it before, at this point, you don't have a right to be, if you're A&M, to be offended. Just go, put your head down, go to work, win games, and the rankings follow.
They do.
If you win, the rankings come.
Yeah.
If they don't, you don't.
I was reading some columnists who said, I don't think A&M should be in the top 25. Doesn't mean I don't think they'll get there, but I don't think they should based on what they did last year. So that guy's methodology is, all right, I'm going to base it on last year. Okay. It's just talk. That's all it is. Let's go to the news and social center. Luke Evangelist. Hello, Luke.
Hello, David. Good morning. How are you doing?
Doing well, buddy.
So I actually have a list of 20 made-up people that I was going to list off because you were doing that earlier. I'm convinced those people aren't even real.
Hold on. You don't think Larry Roper, not Larry Roper, Larry was just the
Larry was just Larry.
Janet, Jack, you really think Jack Tripper's not real? Google him right now on the air.
I don't know who these people are.
Just Google Jack Tripper.
Sounds like Jack the Ripper.
Do you remember the bar they used to go to?
Yeah, he's got pretty good hair.
The Regal Beagle.
The Regal Beagle. Do you know now who Jack Tripper is?
No, it's not ringing a bell. I'm looking at him. I'm seeing him. I'm analyzing what he looks like. And not a single bell has been rung up here.
There was a movie he made, Skin Deep. That was really good.
He's been in a lot of movies.
Yeah.
There's a Crowd.
He was in Bad
Three's
Santa.
Company.
Jack Tripper was?
Yeah. He's in.
He was alive for that?
He's in Sling Blade.
Jack Tripper?
Yeah.
Huh.
It's not ringing a bell.
I'm going to tell you right now, this is a fact.
Okay.
Most of our audience knows who they are.
Okay. I apologize to most of our audience.
In fact, I'm glad that Jonathan in Houston on the text lines texted this in, come and knock on my door. If we can play, I'm sorry, guys at Bryan Broadcasting, if we can play the Three's Company theme song Coming Back and let that bad boy play out, that'd be great. All right. Go ahead, Luke. Who are some of the fake names you made up?
That was a lie. I actually don't have a list of fake names because I was over here working on something for later. But I do have some good news, some Donovan Green news and positive spirits. He tweeted this out. I suffered a season-ending injury this past weekend. This was not what I wanted or expected for this season, but I do understand God's plans are sometimes different from our own. So now I'm already working for next season and helping our team any way possible. I want to say thank you for all the support and prayers. They are definitely motivational.
Yes, sir. God, it's got to be so difficult to not even make it to the season.
Oh, when you work so hard.
Work so hard. And for a guy like him to have come from he's used to winning and have the season that they had, and I'm sure, those months of waiting for the season to get here, and right when it's basically a couple weeks away, taken away from you.
Like I said, it's very unfortunate for him. It's very unfortunate for Texas A&M.
Anything else, Luke?
Well, I mean, I didn't get to say an Apex performance of the week, but if I did, I would have said A&M basketball going 3-0 in the Bahamas and Solomon Washington being very impressive. And then yesterday, there was a little social media campaign, I don't know if you saw it, rallying around Buzz Williams because somebody tweeted, if you were a recruit, who would you come play for?
Dexter Dennis was in that, baby.
Yeah, and not one mention of Buzz Williams was said on that tweet. And so the entire team went and, quote, tweeted pictures of them with Buzz Williams to show their support.
That was cool. I did see that one yesterday. Luke, I sensed a little anger in your voice when you weren't invited to join us on the Apex performance.
No, it's okay. I mean, I'm lucky and fortunate to normally get that invite, but I totally understand not getting it this week. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Good job, Luke.
And
Don't
show
take
love
his
to
bait.
Aggie basketball.
Don't take his bait.
It's not bait. I'm just saying it looked like he was disappointed about it. I think he forgot that he was an intern. That's all right. No big deal.
I don't forget anything, David.
Appreciate your big smile, my friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That
Hey,
was
what
weird.
was the name of that guy we're trying to look up?
Jack Tripper?
I was actually hoping it. I was going to see if he forgot.
Oh, Can you name anybody else from the show
that we just mentioned?
No, but somebody texted in Luke would fit right in on Three's Company. Great hair and mustache.
He does kind of a Larry look about it.
There's a little Larry look. What was Larry's last name?
I don't know. Did he even have one?
I don't know, but he was a partier. That guy was like Johnny Manziel before Johnny Manziel. He was fun. All right, let's hit a break. We'll come back with some more here on TexAgs Radio. We've got our 23 and 23 coming up next. Right now, though, do you think this is such a bad segue, OB? So help me out here. Do you think if Jack Tripper, he's living there, that little apartment complex, where I think he had to live with women for a different reason, right? There was a rule, a stipulation for him to live there, right? Do you think instead of going to the Regal Beagle, he'd probably go get some rib tips at Fargo's?
I would go get some Regal rib tips at Fargo's, especially on a Tuesday.
Right.
And a Saturday, but today's Tuesday, so I'd be going to get those Regal rib tips.
Regal rib
and
tips.
And then maybe if I had a drinking problem, I'd go to the Regal Beagle later. But I have a hunger problem. And if I have a hunger problem, especially on Tuesdays, it's the Regal rib tips.
Oh, they're so good.
At Fargo's.
And that's not the only day you can get those rib tips. I think
no, you can get them on Saturday as well.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, Saturday.
I didn't know you were going to say that. So I'm just going to ask you, Rain Man, what would they get on a Thursday?
Oh, they get a big, thick, juicy pork chop with macaroni and cheese.
Green beans.
Oh, green beans?
We don't mention them
Red
enough.
potatoes.
Do you think the green bean community is upset with us? We don't mention them a lot.
No, I think the green beans are kind of like the offensive line. Offensive linemen, they're very important. They're important for the health, but they live in anonymity.
You notice them when they're not there.
Right.
But that you just expect them to do their
you
job.
You appreciate them.
Yeah. Fargo, 1701 South Texas Avenue in Bryan. Without a doubt, the what?
The greatest barbecue in the world.
That's their trademark because
it's true.
It's Fargo's. Three's Company. TexAgs Radio.
I could never get upset, though, about CCR's version of Proud Mary.
I feel like we haven't heard that song in a while. We're rolling.
Great. Rolling on a river.
By the way, our YouTube folks are like, I don't hear anything. Too bad. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. We were about to take a call, but Steve hung up, so we're not going to take that call. So sorry, Steve. Call back later. Let's do our 23 and 23, which is presented by The Charge Apparel, Aggie owned and operated premier polos. By the way, I'm wearing one of those. See how slightly, I didn't mean to point at the biceps. Tailored fit right there. 12% of total sales are donated to organizations supporting veterans and mental health initiatives. You can visit them at thechargeapparel.com or find them on Instagram at The Charge Apparel or Twitter, The Charge Brand. All right, OB, we are inside the top 10, and we go to
number 10.
Number 10. I said inside the top 10. Fidel Diggs.
Fidel Diggs, number 10 on your program, number 9 on this countdown, number 1 in your heart of the defense last year. The only real consistent pass rush was provided by Fidel Diggs.
And it was really a two games but he got hot.
Well, he played at an All-American level against Alabama. I think that was Tyler Steen he was going against. I may be mistaken on that, but whoever it was, he was owning them. He was showing that speed rush that A&M didn't have without him. Yep. Had 2 sacks in that game. He was also credited with a quarterback pressure, forced 2 fumbles. I mean, he was brilliant. So if you could see something similar to that from him this year, or just more consistency, you're talking a potential All-SEC guy. I mean, he was spectacular in that game against Alabama.
He was spectacular. Unfortunately, he got injured. So his explosiveness off the edge is really what jumps out at me. Like, he's got this ability to pop up, wrap around, and get to the spot. Kind of a quiet young man, well-spoken. Like, I enjoyed talking to him at SEC Media Days because he doesn't speak that often. It was a good conversation. But he's so physically imposing. Like, he looks the part. and he started acting the part.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that contribute to him not having more sacks, right? I'm sure after a while, of course, big part of it you mentioned, he missed 4 games and most of a 5th one. Teams didn't pass as much against A&M because they didn't have to.
Right.
What would he have done? People talk about that Alabama game. What if it had not been Jalen Milroe? Been different. Well, I don't know, because as good as Bryce Young is, he doesn't have the speed that Jalen Milroe have. And there was a couple of times when Diggs was just bearing down and Milroe was able to escape and maybe get a yard out of it. So it didn't count as a sack, but Fidel Diggs was all over him and harassing him. Man, if that had been Young, he might have added another sack or 2.
Yeah.
So he has this incredible potential, and he showed some of the production. And if in a full game, in a full year with some other guys giving him some help in that pass rush, and maybe teams looking at 3rd and 6 or better more often, I think you could see Fidel Diggs really break out.
Obi, what if the game against Bama is just a sample size or sample of what is to come? I'm not saying he's going to get a couple strip sacks every game he plays in, obviously, but just the ability to get in the backfield as freely as he did.
Yeah, the consistent pressure is what you're looking for, and
it's a game changer.
It really is, and I just think that right now he's the only true proven speed rusher that they have, and he also has the size, like you mentioned, to if he has to play more of a power game against the run and things like that, he can do that. But man, he showed it last year, very active. He had 6 tackles against I think it was Arkansas. He was moving around in that game too. It was just that whoever it was, and maybe it wasn't Tyler Steen, who was a 3rd-round pick, but whoever it was playing tackle against him, he was owning him.
Who was, I believe, I might be wrong here, Luke, fact check me, but wasn't he the spring MVP of the defense? I believe he was. All right. So think about this for a second. The spring MVP, am I right about that, Luke?
Yes, you're correct.
All right. Spring MVP defense was Fidel Diggs. The offensive MVP, if I remember correctly, Noah Thomas, right? Those guys did not get to perform a lot last year. If they play at that kind of level this year, that's like such a huge bonus. Like guys that you got to, like Noah Thomas didn't play very much last year, right? He played it a lot towards the end,
catches.
Right? Fidel Diggs, right when he got hot, he was taken away because of injury. Those guys reinserted into this game plan, this team, completely changes the way we look at them.
Well, I think that he boosted the pass rush just by being there. He did have the 2 against Alabama. Then the next week he had a sack against South Carolina, right?
Yeah.
So you're right. He was just starting to hit his stride, I think, and then he got hurt. But A&M has to improve that pass rush, among other things. But that pass rush only had like 18 sacks last year. Fidel had 3 of them in 6 games. So I think just having Fidel Diggs out there, if he's healthy, that's the first step in really boosting that pass rush. And again, if he can get some help, if somebody else is consistently getting there, he's going to be blocked by one guy more often, and maybe he'll get some sacks where quarterback is trying to get away from the first guy, and then here comes Fidel swooping in. I just think there's every reason to feel like Fidel Diggs is going to have a big year.
All right, we got to hit a break here. We're going to go to Steve quickly, though. Steve wants to, if you want to call the show, you can, 979-693-1150. Let's listen to Steve, who wants to talk a little bit about the rankings. Steve, good morning.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
Good.
Well,
sorry for my voice. I sound a little bit like OB this morning.
You're going to have to clear your throat a few times.
Hey, the good thing about the AP poll is that they put out on the internet everybody's votes and rankings. And I don't know if y'all saw Robert Cessna's, but he left the Ags out of the top 25, and he put TU in the top 10. I think he put them at 7. Now, I know he's a local associate of you guys, but what do you think about that?
Doesn't bug me.
Doesn't bother me at all. I just said earlier, I would not have any issue that A&M is not in the in the top 25 if they weren't ranked. I wouldn't have any problem with that at all.
As a journalist, if he feels Texas is a top 10 team, I don't. But if he feels that, and Texas may end up being byproduct of the talent that they have in their schedule, but I don't believe it to be true. But if he believes it, he owes it to the craft to vote the way he thinks.
I think Texas is going to win the Big 12.
Yep,
I do. And so if you're looking at a guy at a team and say, well, I think that's a favorite in a conference, then I don't think it's outlandish to put them in the top 10. If you think they're going to win a conference, I think they're going to win a conference. I think A&M is going to be ranked before the season's over. I think they may be the big surprise team in the nation, but I have no issue with them not being ranked. I don't know if I would rank them.
Steve, we got to hit a break there. Thanks for your call, man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you. There's Steve on the hotline. If you want to be part of the conversation after we talk to Shereen Williams, we'll take some calls. Right now, Heritage Films time. So let's do a documentary on, I don't know, Larry from Three's Company, or your dad, your uncle, somebody very important to your family.
Shereen Williams.
Shereen, like she's the kind that she doesn't get her own, like somebody's going to do a documentary because of who she is. Not like Chance will do it. Chance McClain will do it for sure. But like I think she's like big time. Like the NFL Network will
Yeah, but
probably
she's
do
this
it.
little girl from Orange, Texas, grows up to go into the cover the NFL and goes into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. Like we should do a heritage film on
Yeah.
her. Yeah, absolutely. Because Chance will tell the story. He'll talk about the Orange, Texas, and her growth into the Metroplex and being one of the best writers in the entire country. That's what Chance does with Heritage Films. He does these documentaries about families and about family businesses and family ranches, and it's just an awesome way for the youngers in your family to really see the story. And also, it's great for you to kind of revisit those topics and those stories with your loved ones. It's just a cool thing to do. You can also do the Year Flicks, which is a younger kid video, right? You know, anywhere from teenage years where they can do a benchmark video asking questions about things that they're into right now. And then a couple years later, you update that film, and this is where all the growth has happened through your kids. It's a cool thing to do. It is Heritage Films, the website, yourheritagefilm.com, yourheritagefilm.com, 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341. How can you not love the song?
I kind of don't like it.
Oh, I love it.
I thought the show was okay.
I think I loved it.
Okay.
Three's
Well,
Company. It's awesome. Luke, you like the song?
Yeah, it's actually my new favorite.
Good. I like how your voice got up high for that one. Keep it going for a second because I want to introduce Shereen Williams with it on. It's TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, Go Hour presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Alvarado sends us Larry's last name was Dallas, by the way, so Larry Dallas. And from the Metroplex, we go to the hotline. We're joined by Shereen Williams, Pro Football Talk. We're just reminiscing on the great show that was Three's Company. Shereen, did you ever watch it?
Well, I did some. It wasn't my favorite thing, but I was going to say, you know you're old when you start referring to TV shows that this generation is like, what? What are you talking about? Never heard of it. You know, all those Gilligan's Island and Brady Bunch, and we go way back. Jetsons. We could name TV shows all day.
Yeah,
So,
we can.
But you know you're old. You know you're old when we're talking about Three's Company.
I don't care how old you are, the Jetsons still work.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
George, Judy?
George.
Jetsons
And his
are
boy Elroy.
Wife.
And Jane, his
Yeah.
wife.
God, she was awesome. What was the robot's name? Didn't he have like
Rosie.
Rosie?
And
Look
there's
at you.
Astro.
Rusty the Robot.
It's failed.
What have I done? What I do with my life?
Shereen, can you update us on Myles Garrett? I know that he had to leave practice early yesterday with was it a foot injury?
Yeah, it was foot injury. Looks like he's okay. He came back, signed autographs, wasn't wearing shoes, but walked himself to the bus. So I think he's okay. We'll find out more today. Kevin Stefanski, coach of the Browns, will have his press conference before the afternoon joint practice again with the Eagles. So he wasn't going to play in the preseason game anyway. Fortunately, a couple weeks to, if it is a little bit of a sprain or whatever he has time to get that healed. But hopefully it's nothing and he's back out there practicing today.
Talking to Shireen Williams here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. All right, Shireen, let's talk about Zach Martin getting that deal done for the Cowboys. Just how did it get done, and how big is that for the Cowboys?
Yeah, well, it's big because, I think I mentioned this last week. He's one of the best guards in NFL history. And John Madden, who was the authority on offensive linemen, when I was doing the presentation on Larry Allen, he said Larry Allen and John Hanna are the two best offensive guards in NFL history. And what John Madden says really is gospel. And so I took that to heart, and I think most people would. And I would rank Zach Martin, and I think John Madden at this point would rank Zach Martin along with those two guys. If he were still alive to see Zach Martin play, how he's playing at this age and really what he's done. So 99 rating in Madden doesn't get any better than that, and there's a reason for that. Just a great player. Best guard of today, but one of the best guards of all time. Do guards win you Super Bowls? No, they don't. And I get that, and I get what people say, some people say. And Jerry, in fact, was thinking the same thing before he signed Zach Martin to more money. But they are where they are, and this is kind of what the market is, and he deserves to be paid at the top of the market because he's the best at the position. So he's not even number one in average salary. A couple guys are making over $20 million at the position, so now he's at 18. So I think that's what he deserves based on what the market is for guards, which is, when you think about, I never thought we'd get to the day when guards are paid more than running backs are, but that's where we are. Tony Pollard's on the franchise tag, and he's making 10.1 this year.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that other running back. How much are you a believer in Deuce Vaughn?
Well, I think you have to be after seeing what we saw in the preseason game. I don't care. People are going to say it's against backups. We've seen a ton of backups go out there and not produce, not do anything. And he was electric just with the spin move that he had, the explosiveness he showed. He showed he could run between the tackles, which I think anybody who watched Kansas State play at all the last couple of years would attest that they figured he could do the same thing in the NFL. Now, is he going to hold up? I don't know. That's the big question. And I still say, Olin, that they've got to go out and get a veteran running back because it's fine for him. I think he can. I think Cowboys fans should be excited by him. I think he can run between the tackles. I think he can catch the football. He can do things out in space. What I don't know if he can do, and I have a good feeling the answer is he can't do it, is pick up the blitz, is be able to block. He's not big enough. He's not experienced enough. I just worry about that Dak Prescott, if he's your number 2 running back, Dak Prescott's going to be in some trouble when teams bring extra defenders. And I guarantee you, if Deuce Vaughn's back there and he's the guy who's got to pick some of that up, they're going to bring extra defenders because they're going to think he can't pick it up. And I'd have to agree with him until he shows that he can. So that, in my mind, that's why they need a veteran running back. You need a veteran running back to be able to go in there and pick up the blitz. Who that is, I don't know. You don't need to pay a lot of money for it. There's a ton of them sitting out there, a ton of them. So go sign one of those veteran running backs who you could just bring in to be an extra blocker when you need it, because I just don't think there's anybody on that roster right now that can do that besides Tony Pollard, and you don't want to wear him out.
My opinion.
You're not playing him the entire game.
I know you know more than I do, but it's my opinion that if I'm going to throw the ball and I'm going to tell my running back to just be on this particular play, just be in the back, hell, take him out and put another lineman in there and put the lineman in the backfield.
Right.
If that's all I want, because what I want to see is that rush come in and then just dump it off to Deuce Vaughn and see what he does out in the open field.
Hey.
Yeah, well, you can do that too.
Shireen, throughout the summer, we've kind of talked about Dalvin Cook maybe going to the Jets. It became official yesterday, and one of the things we both were hoping was it wouldn't take away from A-Chain because there was talks of linking him to the Dolphins. So now A-Chain's looks like he's pretty safe, and Dalvin Cook to the Jets.
Yeah, I think this is good for A-Chain. I think he'll get more carries. They used him a lot the other night. I watched the game. They used him a lot. He didn't do very much in the running game, but it was sort of like what you were saying, Olin. Got him out in space with some receptions, and he showed what he could do there, and he had a 38-yard kickoff return, so showed what he could do there. So he did show some things for the Dolphins. Again, like Deuce Vaughn, he's big enough to run between the tackles. Anybody who watched that LSU game last year knows that. And I think the Dolphins have seen that. So, yeah, I think this is really good news for A-Chain, who, by the way, has changed the spelling of his first name, and I didn't realize that until last week. But I digress. I do think A-Chain's going to have a big year for the Dolphins, and this is really good news for him. And I think it's good news for the Dolphins.
I want to talk Cowboys with you. So the first round pick from Michigan, Smith, are you seeing, I know it's just one game and a few practices, but are you seeing anything that says, okay, this was a good pick?
Well, he's got a long way to go, and he needs to get a lot of reps, and he needs to play in both of these preseason games, and he needs to play a lot in these two preseason games coming up. No, he wasn't that good, and from all accounts, some practice has been sort of the same way. So hopefully he's not a Taco Charlton. Hopefully it's just taking a little bit of time. You're not going to call a guy a bust when we haven't played a regular season game, but he needs to show more than what he's shown. For sure, Olin. And, they're counting on him to shore up the middle of that front. And if he doesn't do that, then, it was a wasted pick because there's other guys you could have picked at that spot. So they're still hopeful, but he's got to show more than what he's shown so far.
Shireen Williams, Pro Football Talk, the Hall of Famer. Shireen, thanks so much for your time. Let's talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys.
All right, always good stuff there from Shireen on the program. OB, we're going to hit a break. We're going to come back with a couple different things, but did you know that we're going to talk to Andy McCray? You probably don't know who that is, but that name should mean something to you. He is the coach of the Little League World Series team from the Needville team. Okay. He's a good old Aggie, too, and a TexAgger for the record.
How about that?
How about that?
Well, of course, then he's doing a great job.
Of course he is. So we'll talk to him around 9:20.
Never met a TexAgger that didn't.
Well, there's a couple.
You want to name any names?
Sure.
Okay.
Actually, I better not. All right, let's talk about the Charge Apparel right now. Our buddies there, you know about the Charge Apparel. They've been sponsoring 23 and 23. Made in the USA, polos and tees. They believe in supporting this U.S. economy and domestic jobs, which is why they manufacture their polos and tees right here in the USA. And by the way, awesome, slightly tailored fit right there through the chest and the arms, designed to make you feel and look your absolute best. They're a Texas-based company that operates out of Austin, obviously, but they're behind enemy line, thinking about the Aggies at all times. Both owners graduated from Texas A&M back in 2014. And upon graduating, Tucker was commissioned to the U.S. Army and Travis commissioned into the Air Force. After separating from the military, they formed the Charge Apparel as a way to serve our country through veteran nonprofits that they support. 12% of total sales, not just profits, are donated to veteran nonprofit partners with a focus on mental health initiatives. Go check them out at thechargeapparel.com. Again, that website, thechargeapparel.com. Find them on Instagram at thechargeapparel or Twitter, thechargebrand. And we're back, TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. So, look, I don't want to get into rumors that are out there. They look to be pretty accurate, but I'll just say this. LSU having some issues with some of their players. There was a fight. What was it, a week ago?
About a week ago, yeah.
Yeah. There might be a guy with ties to A&M that's involved in it. His future's up in the air in Denver Harris. We'll find out. I read online that Brian Kelly will address that whole situation on Wednesday, so we'll have to wait until tomorrow for that. But interestingly, there's the guys that left here, several of them. Chris Marshall, right?
Chris Marshall, Ish Harris, Smoke Bowie. Are no longer with the teams.
No longer with their teams, right?
And now we wonder about Denver Harris.
But not only no longer with their teams, like it'd be one thing if it was a full season. They didn't even make it to the year.
Right.
Just, sometimes it's just certain guys don't fit a culture. And A&M, unfortunately, with such a great recruiting class, have a few of those dudes that were together at the same time.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. What I think is I wonder if happens to some of these guys if they never get another chance or if they don't take advantage of their chances, are they going to look 20 years from now and think about what they could have been?
Yep.
Or are they going to be blaming somebody else instead of themselves?
I think there'll probably be a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's unfortunate for them.
Kind of like Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, unfortunately. A lot of opinions on Johnny. People have been reaching out to me a lot. I'm sure they've reached out to you too.
Yes.
And it's really all over the place. And make it current day. Like, learn from the mistakes in the past. Unfortunately, sometimes we all go through this. You got to make your own mistakes before you realize the right path, even though it's right in front of you.
It's true, and there's so many guys that would do anything to have the talent that some of these guys have had, and if they had that ability, they'd make the most of it. They'd cherish it and want to use it and take advantage of their opportunities.
All right, let's do some.
Don't.
Thank you, OB. Appreciate you. Aggie's in the NFL when we come back. TexAgs Radio. And we are back. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to a smiling man, Luke Evangelist. Always a good smile, my friend.
Thank you.
I don't like telling a dude that, but like you always have a good disposition on the air.
Thank you.
That's probably a better way to phrase
I
it.
just have a lot of things to be happy about and grateful for.
I'm surprised you haven't had any go-to lines today to try to make fun of. I think you learned your lesson, maybe.
I did learn my lesson, and if I do need a cocktail from my cocktail waiter over here.
Are you going? Is this a cocktail outfit?
I don't even know.
Are you going after our sponsor on the air? You think that was smart?
Let's pretend I didn't say any of that.
All right, now it got really awkward. Yeah. So we're going to do a thing. Tomas used to do highlights with us. We don't have any highlights today, but we do have some great talking points when it comes to Aggies in the NFL. Shireen will start her series up with that, but we thought we'd try to start a little bit early with some Aggies in the NFL. We touched on it briefly yesterday with Kay Nagley. You got some more insight on our dudes.
Yes.
Are you going to like a 1 through 5? How are we doing this?
I've just got 4 guys, and I'm going to talk a lot about what the buzz has been around them through camp and what their coaches are saying about them and what their teammates have been saying. So Antonio Johnson starting it off strong. He led the Jags in tackles with 8 against the Cowboys this weekend, which is tied for the 4th most tackles in a preseason game this year. The Jags safeties coach said he's got a lot of versatility and he's been making plays in camp.
Great to see that on Antonio. He's such an interesting case, Luke, because Billy was on the air yesterday when we brought him up, and it feels like he went in the 2nd or 3rd round.
Yeah.
He went in the 5th round, right?
Yeah.
But I think he went to a good situation for him. The Jags are going to be the better team in the AFC South, which I don't know if that says much, but they're going to be probably the best team in that division. Tennessee has something to say about that. They have a strong defense. I think he's got some veterans around him. We had him on the show not that long ago. I think it's a good fit for him. And as he said on this show, once you're in there, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're a 1st-round pick, a 5th-round pick, or undrafted. You got to go prove yourself every time. Yeah,
he's absolutely in a really good situation. And someone that he talked about while he was on there was his teammate, Devon Achane, who was probably the star among Aggies in the preseason last week. He had 104 total yards on 15 touches, 41 receiving yards, 25 rushing yards, and 38 kick return yards. And what I really loved was his head coach and play caller, Mike McDaniel, getting him the ball in space with quick screens, motioning him out wide for tunnel screens, using him in play action, and getting him to catch passes out of the backfield. He's been the talk of the Miami Dolphins training camp, especially from his teammates. Jalen Waddle said he's done a lot of amazing stuff this camp. Man, he's going to be good. Brandon Jones, who played with Chris Johnson, compared him to CJ2K and said, I know he's going to have a super successful rookie season and just overall career. All right, can we put that on the big screen again, that picture of Devon? Look at his guns there. I know. He has gotten, for those listening on radio, you can see that he has, we talk about going into a college weight room and the time in a college weight room, how much bigger a guy can get a year into it. That's NFL weight room stuff right there. Yeah. His arms are significantly bigger than I remember. He's not a physically imposing dude. He looks pretty darn big and strong there. Yeah, if you put me in that weight training program, I might look like you in 2 months. I don't think so. Maybe 3 or 4 or a year. Maybe a year. Yeah. I'm not going to even help you on that one. Thank you. So Kellen Mond, one of my favorite quarterbacks from my time here at A&M, he had a little bit of a bounce back performance from what we saw. Hold on, I'm going to pause you for a second. Okay, here we go. No, I'm not making fun of you. Oh, okay. I'm not. There's nothing to make fun of. I've just noticed, which is, you had the right opinion or the right way of going about it, but everybody's your favorite. I just love too many players.
But like, can you pick one? Like, who is not your favorite quarterback? Don't go there.
I'm not going to go there. But I see what you mean when I talk about Aggie basketball. I have a lot of favorite players.
Dexter Dennis, my favorite human ever.
No.
Henry Coleman, my favorite human ever.
No, it's Quentin Jackson, who's my all-time favorite player.
Okay.
But yeah, I see what you mean. I need to refine the word favorite.
No, if you love him, you love him.
I know, it's just hard to pick. It's like asking you to pick between one of your favorite kids.
It's completely different. One is blood and family. Oh, and the other is family. Maybe not blood, but family.
Yeah.
So you're right, Luke.
Aggie family. Well, getting back to that, Kellen Mond, 7 for 12 with 79 yards and a touchdown. He also had 3 rushes for 16 yards. And what I really loved about his performance was that the Browns opened up the playbook a little bit more for him than what we saw the week prior in the Hall of Fame game. His touchdown pass was a 20-yard pass straight into the end zone, and he made some really nice throws to the deep middle of the field and used his legs to extend the play and made a really great throw out of the pocket. On his final drive, he had 3 throws that were longer than 15 yards, and in the Hall of Fame game, do we think we saw him throw the ball at least 15 yards, maybe twice?
Right.
And he did that a lot on his final drive.
So I remember immediately, I didn't watch him this past week, but immediately after that, the first preseason game, the Hall of Fame game, there was quite a bit of, I don't want to say negative social media attention, but like questioning his worth on the roster.
Yeah.
What was the vibe like after this one?
Well, so he is competing with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who is pretty electric for that third spot. And while I do think Kellen played a better game, I think the buzz is a little bit more positive because he almost tied the game for them. They were a 2-point conversion away from tying that game. He led a possibly game-tying drive. So I think there's a lot more positive buzz around him, but I do think Dorian Thompson-Robinson still played really well last week. So we're going to need an even better performance from Kellen next week.
By the way, and I'm sorry for asking this, I don't know the answer. Has Deshaun Watson played at all in the preseason?
I don't think so. I saw Josh Dobbs played a little bit, their backup quarterback, but no Deshaun.
The Browns, by the way, back in action Thursday night against the Philadelphia Eagles, so they'll be back at it.
Yeah. And then finally, we've got Isaiah Spiller, also one of my favorite players. He was my first running back that I loved here when I was a student. So he had 5 carries for 27 yards and 2 receptions for 11 yards. He had a 71-yard touchdown called back, so we're going to basically count that and say that he had over 100 total yards because why not? We really like him. I really loved how his signature patient running style was on display. He outperformed Joshua Kelly, who was fighting for the backup spot with him behind Austin Eckler, and he's got a top 5 rushing grade in the NFL through week 1 of the preseason with 90.5.
Right. Again, I mean, those dudes in the backfield at the same time, just we hope. We don't know. We hope that this current trio that they have in the backfield, they have more than 3, but the 3 that we normally talk about can turn out to have that kind of NFL future. That'd be great. So do you know who the Chargers play next? I'm trying to see if I have that on me.
I do not have that.
I have that right here. The Chargers do not play anybody because they're not showing up on my. There you go. The Saints on Sunday night. And by the way, another one to talk about is the fact that the Jags and Antonio Johnson, they're going to take on the Detroit Lions, and that is obviously Dan Campbell's team, who I believe looked pretty good in their first preseason game.
They did. We've got
a
little Aggie player versus Aggie coach action in both of those games.
And do you know who Devon Achane is going to be playing Saturday at 3 o'clock?
I can't wait to find out.
I want you to take a guess.
Oh, goodness. The Cowboys?
No, but close. Close. Try again. You're really close.
Close regionally or close divisionally?
I think just throw one out there. Let's see if it
The Giants.
No, close as in regionally. The Houston
The
Texans.
Texans.
Yeah, at NRG Stadium, by the way. So hopefully, there's a bunch of Aggie fans that can make it out to that game and see Devon out there.
Yeah, I might have to go watch that.
In Houston. All right, Luke, thank you very much. If you want to be a part of the conversation, you can do that multiple ways. The phone number is 979-693-1150. 979-693-1150 is the number. So I'll give you a little bit of a rundown of what we have the remainder of the hour. It's actually a very loaded next hour and 10 minutes or so. And then the last part of the show, we will be just chilling out just a tad bit. But here's what we have for you. We've got Andy McRae coming up here in about a little bit less than 10 minutes. We'll get Andy McRae on the program. Right after, Andy McRae is the Little League World Series coach here from the Southwest region. Looking forward to seeing what he can do there with Needville and what their aspirations are. A good Aggie, a TexAgger. So we'll have him here in a few minutes on the program. After that, Adam Rittenberg from ESPN going to be joining us. We'll be talking all about the stuff going on in college football. And it looks like I'm looking at Rittenberg's stories recently, a lot of the business of sports. The whole Northwestern story that hasn't gone away, the whole Iowa story that hasn't gone away. You've got Florida State, which, by the way, today is the day that they're supposed to announce if they're going to leave or try to find a way out. More than likely, they're going to stick around because today's the deadline, and I haven't seen anything new. If they were going to try to exercise some way out, there just isn't a way out right now. They're going to have to do some more investigation as that develops, so we will be on top of it. We'll talk to Adam about that for sure on the program. So we got that, and then obviously get some of his thoughts on the AP poll, because there's a lot of conversation about where teams are. Like I'm high on Penn State. I'm high on Penn State because I think they got the quarterback situation. I think they got a defense. I think they have a favorable schedule, right? But too many times these rankings are based on last season, and there isn't really one great methodology, right? When it comes to Texas A&M, don't even worry about it until October 1st, right? Like, I think when you get to the first part of October, and sure, we're going to update you on it, we're going to see it, but it isn't really going to matter until they play games. I was talking to my brother yesterday, and he never listens to the show, by the way, because, why would he listen to his little brother? But that being said, I'm kidding, Alex. He made a comment that I think we have said on this show many times. That first game of the year, they best put on 30, 40 points in the first half. That's maybe an exaggeration of a score, but that's the kind of – they send a message that this is not the same A&M team, that they're not going to play down to the competition, send a message that they're going to take care of business so early that in the second half – they can play these youngsters and get them some real game action, right? That should be the mindset. Get your starters out healthy, get a significant lead. But we're not going to know anything about this team. I think we're going to know a lot by the end of September. But you're going to have to go through some of those battles to really feel like, all right, we're completely removed from last year. Because I'm mentally removed from last year because I am optimistic. The whole conversation on the phone last night was like really, tell me what you're really thinking. And I'm like, I'm really thinking they've answered every question that I have about them. So now let's just go see them do it. That's how I really feel. It's not a facade for the radio or whatever. That's how I feel about them. And they have that opportunity, soon. But they're going to have to go through the battles in order to feel good about it. And I'm sorry if they take on Auburn. Let's say they get through Miami, they get through Auburn, and they're unscathed. I still won't know, but there's going to be enough information there, because the question that keeps popping up is can you really see their offense being that good? So Cousin Shane will be on the program, by the way, those of you who know him from that SEC podcast. And he had a debate with SEC Mike about who will have the better offense, either Kentucky or A&M. And they're two teams at least strategically that are kind of aligned, tough defense, run the ball. They've significantly improved their running game. They do not have the wide receiver depth that A&M has. I wouldn't say they've upgraded their quarterback per se, although Devin Leary may be a better quarterback. But they have, a really good quarterback. And then you've got potentially the Connor factor with his touch and whatnot. But those things it's all right now theory until it becomes legit practice, right? Until we see it in a game effort. All that being said, nobody that is voting on these rankings has a real idea until it is played out. And it's going to play out. And that's why I think you've got to get through that Auburn game heading into the Arkansas game. And I think if you get through those two games undefeated, then I think am I right, Luke? That would be the 5th game of the year. So you have potentially can get to October with the same amount of wins that you had last year. You have a chance to get to that number in 1 month of play, 5 games in that month, right? You have that chance. That, to me, doesn't tell you the whole story, but it sure makes you feel better. Because how many times have we seen an A&M team start off really good? Jimbo's teams, traditionally, I think have finished well. How about having it all year long, the consistency? If you win the games you're supposed to, you're a 9-win team. If you win the games that you're supposed to, you're a 9-win team. That's exactly what we have. All right, let's hit a break here. I was just told that Andy is ready to go, so we'll hit a break. We'll chit-chat with him about what's going on there at Williamsport in the Little League World Series. Looking forward to chatting with him about all things going on and just how he became a TexAgger and his thoughts on A&M and whatnot. But right now, let's talk about Caprock Health System. Highly personalized emergency care there at Caprock. Their patients benefit from a very unique one-on-one experience. And should your stay require you to be there a little bit longer than expected, they're going to manage every element of your visit. They have a very low patient-to-doctor-nurse ratio, which means their medical team truly gets to know you and your individual needs. And there's so much comfort in knowing that yes, they're going to look at your file, of course, but there's a connection there. There's a feeling of, hey, I feel comfortable around this person right there. They've got hotel quality rooms as well, so you never have to be in a dreary environment when you go to Caprock Health System. They're just there to make you feel better. That is their sole purpose, to make you feel 100% better. And by the way, speaking of 100%, they're 100% locally owned and operated right here in the Brazos Valley, putting the patient first in every decision that they make. 2 state-of-the-art facilities designed for patient healing and family friendliness. You got Caprock Hospital in Bryant and Caprock 24-hour Emergency Center in College Station. They both have 0 wait time for emergency care, so you'll never have to sit in a crowded waiting room. It is Caprock Hospital in Bryant and Caprock 24-hour Emergency Center in College Station. Go check them out. All right, we're back. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. As I've been mentioning all morning, Needville is headed to the Little League World Series, and their head coach is a good old Aggie out there, been a TexAgger since the early 2000s. He told me in a text, and now he's doing the publicity tour. I think if I got his itinerary correct, he was just with ABC, or he's about to be with ABC, so we'll talk to him about that. Andy McRae with us here on the program. Andy, good morning, man. How you doing?
Doing well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I've been a TexAgger for a long time.
That's awesome, man. So how has it been? Because I can imagine, I'm just guessing here, you just love to coach ball, right? You want to see some baseball, coach at a high level, and now you got all these demands, TexAgs, ABC, like all these things happening. Is it cool? Is it fun? Is it exciting? Tell me the vibe.
So it's really, hey, I'll admit it's cool, right? It's different. I work in insurance and not in television and not a coach full time, and so it's really interesting. This is a cool one for me because, like I said, I've been doing this a long time. Some of the other ones I'm like, oh man, I don't know what to say, but overall it's been a great experience for us and the boys. The boys love it. They do interviews with television, and they had a parade up here, and they're throwing, there's kids throwing them balls to sign and throwing them back. There's adults throwing them balls to sign back. They just ate it up. So it's just been a really wonderful experience overall.
One of my favorite things to do when I was at the old TV station I was at was these Little League World, because if Houston, for some reason, every year it's got like a team. The Houston area's got a team out there. I know Richmond was really good, Bel Air, and now Needville making their first run. How did it all come together?
Oh, when there were 5 or 6 kids, when Needville's a small town, it's about 3,000 people, so it's not like we have this big area to pull from, but. I've coached some other teams when my older son, when they were around, and they had some good teams, but this one, when there were 4 or 5 kids that when they were in T-ball, you went, oh, these kids are like way better than the other kids. And so it really stood out, and we just started putting it together. They all play travel baseball and they do that, but we've always kept it together kind of from a community standpoint. They come back and play Little League and we wanted to make this run. We thought about it 5-6 years ago and kind of worked towards it for the last 5 or 6 years. So it's been really cool that the boys have bought in.
So was there a point in the season where you're like, okay, everything we had envisioned 4 or 5 years ago is actually set up to do exactly, or did you really see it that long ago?
No, we saw it. So at 10 years old, we went to Needville is, again, it's not a large community. So we had a lot of success at 10. We won our state championship at 10. We got second at 10, excuse me. We won it again we won it at 11. So when we won it at 12 this year, and if you win the state of Texas, it's Texas East. Texas is broken into two states, East and West, because it's so large. So when we won that, we knew we had a shot, right? It was like, okay, if you can win Texas, we can go beat folks from Louisiana and Mississippi and those. They're a great ball clubs, but we knew we had a shot. So.
Talking to Andy McRae here on TexAgs Radio. What class are you of A&M, by the way?
Class of 2000.
2000. All right, a little younger than me. That's cool. Tell me a little bit about
not much.
Tell me a little bit about some of the youngsters on the team. Tell me about their personalities, their vibe, all that good stuff.
Yeah, no, we have a great group of kids. They've all played together. We have one middle school, one elementary school, and one high school in town, right? So they all are together every day, all day. It's like 12 of their best friends running around. They're the football players, they're the basketball players, they're the baseball players. There are the good kids in town, but they make up a lot of the talent pool. So it's really cool to watch them. They're, like I said, they a lot of them play travel ball together too. So they are literally together every week of the year, most of the days of the week, and it's really fun. That it's good. And then there's also such a comfort level at times. We got to reel them back in and say, hey, let's concentrate and play. But they're great kids, and they're really outgoing. They've had a great experience meeting people from Cuba and Japan, and we room with the kids from Venezuela, and they're trading arm sleeves for gloves for this and that. It's really cool. They have no idea what they're saying to each other, but they're making deals, right?
And I understand they like to dance too, huh?
Yeah, we got a little dance off when we have a kind of a nervous game. We have one of our coaches, Joey Bench, who will get in there and start the dance moves, and then we have the kids jump in, and it just kind of relaxes them. At times, people expect them to do more. But they're 12, so a nice dance off, take their game off, and sometimes we'll play a wiffle football game to break it up too, right? Because they all like football too, and they get a little tired of baseball a bit, so we'll throw a wiffle ball game in there. We'll put a plastic ball in there and let them play football to warm up. So we mix it up a little bit.
Andy, with kids who are involved in youth sports that have to travel, I'll ask you this as the coach: who is having more fun, the players or the parents? Because I know the parents, they're probably having a really good old time.
Yeah, the parents have a really good time, especially when you know each other so well. There might be a few pops drink here or there, in the evenings. But no, I honestly, the kids probably, but it's really, really close. I can promise you that. Now, it's been a long summer, and we're getting to a point where we've been away for close to 3 weeks, where we were home for 2 days. So moms and dads and brothers and sisters are starting to miss their their kids who are playing. Luckily, we're going to get some time coming up. We're kind of get a little break in the schedule. It's actually a little more time when this tournament starts during the day to see your family. So
I can only imagine travel, how expensive, and how are they managing? Because to me, you don't know your schedule until you qualify, and then by that point, flights are expensive, and you've already been traveling for so long. Are the kids away from their family for most of it? And I assume you said they room with the other kids. So how does that all work out in the pricing and all that?
Yeah, I mean, the pricing, the kids are mostly taken care of by Little League. There's some meals we buy and stuff like that, but the families have really had to come. I mean, it's not a cheap trip to Williamsport to start with, much less the other 3 tournaments. We played one in Corpus Christi, one in Tyler, and we were somewhere else. It's all running together. Oh, Waco. We were in Waco. So we've had 4, week-long trips where folks have been out. Then this one to Williamsport. It's a blessing, but it's also, it's not cheap. Youth sports is not cheap in general.
Tell me a little bit about your time at A&M. And actually, let's
start. Oh man, I was class of 2000. I was there for 98. When we won the Big 12. Been a huge TexAgs fan for ever. I have to shout out the old recruiting wars of like Jose Scott and Chip Ambrose and all those guys. You go back, and that was kind of my time watching it and listening to it, or not listening but reading it on the Maroon and White Report and stuff. So we just we were. A&M was different in 1998 to 2000 than it is now, and it was a good fun time. But we still make it back quite a bit. My 16-year-old son is probably more of a TexAgger than I am now. He's on it like 20 hours a day, I would guess, at some point. So
is he a lurker or does he post?
Tradition. What's that?
Does he lurk or does he post?
He's a lurker mostly because I won't let him post because I'm more of a lurker too. I'm not a poster, but he does sometimes post under my credentials. So at the end of the day, and I'll say, dude, you can't say that. Like, you got to back off a little bit. He's 16. So, but we have fun.
Are you, when it comes to A&M sports, were you just as big into baseball as football?
Oh, we actually my son plays on a youth basketball team too, and BJ Holmes is his coach. So going back, yeah, so that's kind of fun. Me and BJ get to talk about basketball and stuff. And yeah, no, I love all A&M sports. That's what we do at our house. We watch A&M sports and watch the Houston Texans and Astros. That's kind of the what we do.
What do you think about Schloss and what he's doing with the baseball program?
Oh, it's huge. I think we're going to be back in the College World Series here pretty soon, and I think that he's really. It looks really good. You know, at the end of the day, I know they just got Braden Montgomery, and that kid can play. So hey, anytime you get kids throwing 97 miles an hour, you got shot.
By any chance, do you have other Aggie families on the team?
Yes, we do. We have a couple other Aggie families on the team. Yeah, we got all my families, Texas A&M, couple of 3 or 4 other families. Now, Needville's a rural community, so we tend to lean the Texas A&M way versus the other way, which we don't talk about.
So a mutual friend of ours is how we got linked up. Greg Hodges, who by the way loves the University of Texas, which is his biggest flaw. But he's listening to the TexAgs today, so I appreciated him linking us up today. Just tomorrow it gets started, right? Like 6 o'clock, is that right? Yeah. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, we actually play. We play the Pennsylvania team, so they random draw. That's what I hear. They random draw. We aren't in the group, but they random draw. We drew the Pennsylvania team at 7 o'clock, so they're expecting like 15,000 people at this game. For my, I had 12-year-olds have played in front of 1,000 maybe. So we'll see how I think they're going to be fine. We've talked about it, and they're really loose, and we got a good shot to beat them. But it's going to be a really, really cool experience, to be in front of that group. So.
Andy, how weird is it? Like, you've got worldwide attention, right? It's you're on ESPN. You've got worldwide attention from the small town outside of Houston. Is the moment like? Do you feel that, or is it just tunnel vision? We're playing baseball, and we'll focus on this later.
I think I think we feel it. It'd be a lie if I said it's tunnel vision with 12-year-old kids and people who've never experienced it. We feel it. I'm talking to you guys, or I'm having an interview with, another television station. I'm like, this is not normal for me. I'm 45. I've never done it before. Same for the kids. They're getting autographs and giving out autographs, and people are taking pictures of them, and little kids walking up to them, adults walking up to them, want pictures. So it's really cool, and they're embracing it. I don't see it bringing them down or making them unfocused, but I think come game time, once we felt it at Waco. We were first time we ever play on ESPN, and everybody was nervous. You could see it, but as soon as they closed the gates, they just focused on baseball, and it was nice to see because they just naturally did it.
Andy McRae, the head coach there for Needville. You guys go under the moniker Southwest, right? That you have to. It's
we're
Needville.
Southwest, yeah. I wore Needville to represent the blue, but we're candy corn this weekend. So.
Well, we hope you win it all, man. It's been fun to, Greg tweets about it all the time. I'm seeing it on ESPN, on all the TV stations. Such a cool ride for you all. Best of luck, and I hope to get you on the show again at some point.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Andy McRae there, the head coach there at Needville, the top guy doing big things there, and a big TexAgger. When we come back on TexAgs Radio, Adam Rittenberg going to join us. We'll chit-chat with Adam about all things going on in the world of college football. But right now, caller number 1, we're going to give you a free car wash from Aggie Land Express Car Wash in South College Station off of William D. Fitch in Greens Prairie. Aggie owned and operated with the friendliest staff and a personal touch. They offer a monthly membership. We'll give the first caller a free car wash right now from Aggie Land Express in South College Station. 979-693-1150. All right, we're back. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. As I mentioned earlier in the tease, our next guest has been writing a lot about the stuff off the field recently because there's so much going on. We'll get into some of that, and obviously the stuff happening on the field here come September. Adam Rittenberg of ESPN joining us on TexAgs Radio. Adam, good morning, man. How you doing?
Doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. So the AP poll yesterday comes out. A&M comes in at 23. Did they get it right for A&M, a team that has the talent, hasn't shown it yet, but made some necessary changes?
Yeah, I think A&M fans should be thrilled that they're even in the poll, given what happened last year. But as you mentioned, certainly has the talent and certainly is more of a projection than I think necessarily a reflection of what we saw last year. Do they have the potential to be a top 25 team? Absolutely. Do they have the potential to be a top 15 team? Absolutely. But were they more deserving than, say, Texas Tech that brings back a lot of players from pretty good team last year. I probably wouldn't have done that. They weren't in my power rankings. A&M was not, but I think overall what you could expect at the top, certainly be interesting to see if, Florida State, Washington, USC can kind of back up this preseason hype, or whether they're going to fall off a little bit.
Yeah. When it comes to A&M, did they at least, because depending on how people do their rankings, did they at least do enough to make you feel better about some of the questions with the offensive philosophy, potentially some of the youth movement getting a little bit older and more experienced?
I think they played better down the stretch last year. Certainly their final game was encouraging, and you're talking to coaches around the SEC. I think there's optimism around Connor Wegman and what he can do at quarterback. But I think until we see what this offense is and how it functions and how they, how Jimbo Fisher and Bobby Petrino truly work together when things are adverse, I think it's hard to make any sort of proclamations of value right now. We have to wait and see with A&M. They have a fairly easy opening stretch. Can they take advantage of that, gain some confidence? But as you know, there's going to be moments where things don't go well for them, just like that's the case for every team. How do they respond in that moment? How do their players respond? But I think the real intrigue, at least away from College Station, is how do their coaches respond? And can they be positive in terms of getting things on track? Or, as several coaches have told me in the conference, it's just going to explode, and it'll be fun for the rest of us, but certainly not fun for A&M or its fans.
That's interesting that people are saying that. Did you see the Bobby Petrino press conference? Because I feel like, a press conference is what it is. It's a PR show, but he handled it, I thought, perfectly.
Yeah, he did. And again, Bobby's been around. He's been a head coach. I think there's a healthy amount of respect for sure between Bobby Petrino and Jimbo Fisher, but it doesn't matter, David, until the season begins, until you've lost a game, or, the calls were not right, or there was a disagreement in game. How are they going to handle that? You have two guys who have built their reputations on being elite play callers and not really being questioned. And that could certainly work to A&M's benefit, or it could work against the program. And we're not going to know, we're not going to know on August 10th or whenever Bobby's press conference was. We're going to know on September 10th and October 10th and November 10th. That's when it matters. That's when we're going to really see, and A&M fans are going to see how they respond in the moment, and whether they can let this thing or correct whatever needs to be corrected, make sure the program doesn't spiral, and if you lose a game, get back on track. That's what I'm most intrigued about. But certainly, I think, from what Bobby said, and he's excited to be there, and he's been around, he knows what he needs to say, and I think he handled that situation well.
Adam Rittenberg with us here on TexAgs Radio. Adam, at the end of September, we'll know a lot about A&M. What will we know about Georgia, who already is the number one team? They've won 2 back-to-back national championships. What do you think we'll know about them?
Well, I think it'll be intriguing to see how they look on offense. We got so used to seeing Stetson Bennett. It's amazing to say that, but we're so used to seeing him lead that offense and play really well in big moments and complement what's been an incredible defense. Now there's going to be a new quarterback, most likely Carson Beck, leading that crew. How does he handle those situations? How is the receiving core around him? I think there's optimism that they might be better at receiver. They obviously have the best tight end in the country in Brock Bowers coming back. They've always been strong on the offensive line and at running back. And so I think that's the unit that I'm going to be watching, because, Todd Monken's gone. And even though Mike Bobo had that job for many years, he's still a new person calling the plays, more involved than he was last year as an analyst. Defensively, I think we've come to expect excellence from Georgia. So anything less than that, I think, might raise a few alarm bells, especially given some of the offenses that they'll face later in the season.
Talking to Adam Rittenberg here on TexAgs Radio. All right, so same question, but let's pose it towards Alabama. What are we going to know about Alabama at the end of September?
Yeah, Alabama to me is a lot more intriguing, because I know they've had situations at quarterback that are uncertain entering the year, but not one quite like this that I can remember, especially following a run of Heisman Trophy winner and Bryce Young and Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts. Who's going to be the quarterback? How is he going to play? How is it going to work with Tommy Rees in that system? It's really intriguing to me, because we know they have the talent really on both sides of the ball, but do they have a difference maker at quarterback? You look at LSU, Jaden Daniels coming back. I think there's an expectation that Carson Beck is going to be really good for Georgia. Spencer Rattler's back, obviously, at South Carolina. I think there's high hopes for Joe Milton at Tennessee. And in Alabama, it's a giant question mark to see who's that guy and how's he going to perform, especially with the week 2 game against Texas, which is, the heavy favorite to win the Big 12, seemingly the most talented roster again in the Big 12, a team that pushed Alabama last year, and Alabama was fortunate to get out of Austin with the win. So that's a really good barometer to see where Alabama is very, very early in the season.
Adam, it's funny with Alabama. I would not be surprised if they go 11-1, regardless of the quarterback situation, because it's Alabama. I wouldn't be surprised, and it's not a huge drop-off, that they go 9-3, something I don't think Nick Saban's done.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's been a long time since Alabama has certainly lost 3 regular season games. But I think because of that uncertainty at quarterback, there's certainly questions along the offensive line. Can that unit get back to being elite again? How's their defensive front going to be? They obviously have some elite level players, I think, in the back 7, but do they have an elite lineman? How many of those incredible recruits are going to get on the field early in their careers? Who's going to replace Jahmyr Gibbs as far as a multi-talented threat out of the backfield? So these are all valid questions. Now, it's a program that has shown over a long period of time that it rarely goes very long without winning a national championship. You have the greatest coach, I believe, of all time who's leading the program. So I think it's 11-1's a lot closer to than 9-3, but I think both are certainly possible given the question marks around the team entering the season.
Adam, let's turn our attention to the Big Ten, Ohio State. There's still some questions about the quarterback situation there with Kyle McCord, and I think Devin Brown is the one who's slightly under him. How does that play out, and how does it play out this year for Ryan Day?
Right. As we sit here mid-August, they don't have a starter, and I think there was certainly hope that someone would separate himself. In talking to people around the Ohio State program, I was there about 10 days ago. They say that Devin Brown is not the type of guy to go down without a fight. Even though Kyle McCord's been in the program longer, he's been seen as sort of that next guy in after C.J. Stroud. Devin Brown's a tremendous athlete. He's a great competitor. He brings something a little bit different to the table. When I was there, and I think they're still doing this, they are actually practicing on 2 separate fields to essentially give a lot of reps to both of those two, but also the other quarterbacks, in that room. So I think that Ryan Day, and hearing him a little bit earlier this week, could sense a little frustration that they haven't had, necessarily that separation. Maybe that'll occur in the next week. Maybe it spills into the season. And as Michigan showed last year, you can play a couple of quarterbacks early on, figure things out, and still go on to win a conference and play for in the college football playoff. But you look at that week, 4 game for Ohio State at Notre Dame. That's the point where they need to have it figured out. Who's our guy? Who are we going to ride with? Whether it's Brown, whether it's McCord, as many think it will be, they need to have an answer by then.
Adam, let's talk about the Florida State situation. Obviously, they are looking for ways out. Today's the 15th. I think it's the deadline for them to be able to tell the ACC, regardless, there's the grant of rights. It's not that easy. They have lawyers involved. Has anything happened today that you know of? And secondly, does something happen over the next couple of years?
Well, I think nothing has happened today so far. I don't expect it to. They haven't scheduled a Board of Regents meeting at this hour, and I think they would have to be able to facilitate an early exit out of the ACC. So I think they're looking at their options, seeing what's possible. They've obviously sounded their alarms and made it very clear to the ACC the position that they have right now. And we'll see what type of response the league will have, or if there's no response. I think Florida State has certainly rallied its base, but then you've got to act. And this is a program, and you guys know this as well as anyone, given your head coach, that has not been flush with money. Despite its incredible history, Florida State is not a program that's dripping in money, or else Jimbo Fisher might still be their head coach and wouldn't have left for Texas A&M. He would have stayed where he won a national championship. So the fact that they're the one who's so motivated to challenge the ACC and get out of a situation that's not going to be cheap is really interesting. And we'll see how it kind of evolves here over the next few months and possibly years.
What about Stanford, their football future? There are some that think maybe they just decide not to do it, which is so sad to hear, especially the success that they had in the 2010s to the 2020. What is going to happen with Stanford?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't think Stanford's going to fold the program. They have a lot of money, and they have a history, as you mentioned, of competing at a high level. They did that for many years. under Jim Harbaugh and David Shaw, and even going back to the Bill Walsh and Denny Green and others over the years. They've had a solid program. They're just looking for a home, whether that's partnering up with the AAC schools or the ACC schools, or trying to figure it out with the 3 remaining Pac-12 schools. I think, again, the day and age we're in right now, David, with NIL, the portal, those things don't work in Stanford's favor. So I think reality has to set in as far as what can you compete for. It's going to be a lot harder to have a top 10 program like you had towards the end of Harbaugh's tenure, and certainly the first part of David Shaw's tenure. That's probably not realistic, but I don't think you have to fold the program either. So it's figuring out where you belong, what you can compete for, and what's adequate, but also where your other sports program is going to be, because in many ways, Stanford's athletic program is much stronger than its football program. When you look at the overall diversity of sports and, really name a sport, and they're usually good at it. Name a sport, they're usually producing professionals or Olympians or both. And so that's, I think, the maybe the primary concern for Bernard Muir, their AD, and the administration at Stanford.
Adam, I know you've been reporting on the messy situation at Northwestern. Football took the headlines initially, but I think it was just yesterday the baseball side getting a little bit more messy. What's the latest with that?
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of different things happening there with different programs. Now, they're not all the same. Football was a strictly a hazing issue with allegations from former players in the program, mainly against other players, which have not been named. Baseball is an issue involving the former coach Jim Foster, and now staff members have filed a lawsuit against him, against the athletic director, against the university. There's also been a lawsuit filed on the volleyball side, but that was an incident that happened a couple of years ago. So it's all because, in my view, the football situation with Pat Fitzgerald and the attention that generated in early July. That's kind of opened the floodgates for a lot of these other legal actions to be taken. And each one will be looked at differently. Northwestern pushed back much more against the baseball lawsuit than it did any of the lawsuits from former football players. But there's certainly questions going forward as to the leadership, who will be leading this program, who will be leading the university. I think there's a lot of people around Northwestern who have been silent, but absolutely would like to see changes made beyond just Pat Fitzgerald losing his job.
Adam, let's close with one actual on-the-field thing. The current crop of quarterbacks in college football, the returners, the guys that are expected to lead the way, the Caleb Williams, the Drake May, just how good of a future do those guys have, in your opinion, at the next level?
Yeah, it's really exciting because you think about, the NFL draft, 3 of the top 4 picks were quarterbacks, including the top 2. You think maybe there'd be a drop-off. Well, there isn't. And certainly Caleb Williams and Drake May from North Carolina are the headliners, but there's other players that, with strong performances this season, will improve their draft stock. The Pac-12, for example, we'll have a story about this out soon on ESPN.com. It may be the most productive returning group of quarterbacks in a single league ever in college football. When you think about Williams, Michael Penix, who led the nation in passing last year, Bo Nix, Cam Rising, who led Utah to back-to-back Pac-12 championships, DJ Uiagalelei now transferring in to Oregon State, Jaden DeLora, Cam Ward. There's a lot of really productive players coming back in the Pac-12. ACC's got a really interesting quarterback group. Last year, they were the league we were all talking about at quarterback, but you have Drake May and Jordan Travis, kind of as the headliners, but Brennan Armstrong, who was a record-setting quarterback at Virginia, he's reuniting with his former offensive coordinator at NC State, Robert Anae, now at NC State. Jack Plummer is in the league, transferring to reunite with Jeff Brom in Brom's first year at Louisville. Phil Jurkovich, who started at Notre Dame, then went to Boston College. Now he's at Pitt with his former offensive coordinator in Frank Signetti. So, and then Clemson with Cade Klubnik, can they recapture their form offensively? That's going to be really interesting. Big Ten, SEC, not as many familiar names, but we went through some of them in the SEC. Certainly Jaden Daniels up at the top of that list, along with Spencer Rattler from South Carolina. So I think it's a really exciting group of quarterbacks, but I think everyone, as far as NFL stock goes, is chasing Williams and May.
Does KJ Jefferson have a chance at the next level?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm glad you brought him up. I think he's an interesting player. Certainly will be in a new offense this year with Dan Enos, who's on his second stint as the Arkansas offensive coordinator. But he's a guy that has shown really good efficiency, doesn't turn the ball over a lot. He's obviously a really big dude, hard to bring down, from a running standpoint. So interested to see what he can do to elevate his team and his stock for the draft, as a third-year starter now with a second coordinator in Enos.
Adam, I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much. We'll do it again, all right?
You bet. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Adam Rittenberg, ESPN. Always good analysis on the program. Appreciate that. Let's hit a break here. Before we do that, Young Alumni Weekend's coming up, guys. September 23rd. Grab your friends. Join the Aggies from class of 2011 to 2023 for a weekend of connection, nostalgia, and fun hosted by the Association of Former Students. Come back to Aggieland on that September 23rd date, that Saturday. Connect with former students at the Young Alumni Tailgate, where you can get some great food, drinks, games, pregame yell practice as a former yell leaders from these classes will lead a yell practice as the team prepares to take on Auburn out there. Tickets to the Young Alumni Tailgate are available for purchase at tx.ag/YAW. You can also sit with friends at the football game by purchasing tickets in the reserve block for the Young Alumni Weekend. A link to the purchase discounted football tickets will be provided in your tailgate. So check it out, tx.ag/YAW for more details, and share the link with your friends. Be sure to follow the Aggie Network and the Young Alumni TAMU Young Alumni for a chance to win free tickets to the tailgate, sideline passes to Midnight Yell, parking, and much, much more. It is the Association of Former Students. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Short segment here because we went a little long with Adam Rittenberg. By the way, I don't care. I don't get mad at people's opinions, right? I guess if they're rude, I've been rude back. But I guess my point is, he didn't seem, and I don't know if you listened very much, Luke, but he didn't seem as high on A&M. But his reasoning was, I think something we've said on this show, just verbalized maybe a little differently, was, I just got to see it. And I think that's a fine assessment because we say it too on the show.
Yeah, so I listened very closely, and I do agree with what you were saying about it's some stuff we've said, but I think he is very reluctant to see any positives in A&M. I think he's just kind of assuming that it's going to be the same old, when we know it won't be.
We hope it won't be, and I don't think it will be. The doom and gloom that I keep hearing, maybe I'm wrong, and hey, guys, I admit when I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. But I'm not like, oh, the first time they lose, they're going to hate each other and fight. Why? I mean, that's not the vibe I get at all, but people got to talk about something. All right, we'll come back with Cousin Shane next on TexAgs Radio. This next song I think is perfect. I could see Cousin Shane walking into the bar with this song playing like his wrestling theme song. Let's go to the hotline. Cousin Shane with us here on TexAgs Radio. Cousin Shane, how you doing?
What's going on?
Hey, brother, how you been?
Doing good, man. Doing real good. I tell you what, talking season is over. We've got real football, and I love it, man. Every time I get on Twitter now, there's no more politics. There's no more religion. It's all football, and that's the feed I like.
Well, look, I'm so happy to get you on the show for a couple reasons. So yesterday we're having a post-show meeting, and Billy's like, you better be nice to Cousin Shane. Everybody thinks, like, I thought it was all love between us and SEC Mike and yourself. I'm right?
Yeah, I got to be careful, because Mike ruffled a few feathers here last year, and I was like, now listen, we're two separate entities here, No, Mike, that's Mike, and I love him to death. Obviously, he's family, and he's been known to cause a few ripples, but man, that's the beauty of like our show is we kind of bounce back off of each other. So as soon as Mike makes one upset, I kind of lift them back up.
By the way, the show that he's talking about is doing awesome, by the way, that SEC podcast. So how did obviously your family, but how did the show come together? How did you guys decide, like, this is the direction we're going to take it?
Yeah, no, great question. Actually, it was almost by accident at first. Mike was just looking for me to pop in and fill a spot, and it just kind of took off from there. But, I work full-time, and sometimes driving an hour to my office, it's a long haul, and there's nothing to listen to. And we wanted to, after you listen to your TexAgs or something like that, maybe you want to fill in your space with something else. There was nothing covering the entire SEC. out there. And so it kind of snowballed. And obviously, if you talk to Mike, you realize he's the smart one of the bunch. And if you're curious who's the backup left guard at South Carolina, he's your dude. But I'm more of the color commentator, if you will. But I love college football. I've always been one of those guys that if my Vols ain't playing, then I'm rooting for the SEC team. So I know some folks frown upon that, but it's just in my DNA, and I love this conference, and I love to see them succeed.
Did you ever hear the exchange Mike and I had a year ago?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry about
that. No, that's why I was afraid to approach you there at SEC Media Days. I didn't know if I was going to get knocked out, but I was just really just dodging a buffer for Mike. But hey, that's what this is all about, man. College football is about. I mean, we if we can't rib each other about football, then there's nothing. In fact, I saw Tex yesterday putting up Justin Tucker kick. It's just that's what they do. So we like to give each other a hard time, but when it comes down to it, we just love the game.
No doubt about it. Talking to Cousin Shane. Do I call you Cousin Shane? Do I call you by your last name? I mean, I'm in the family, but I'm not. What do I do?
Yeah, no, we're all family here. So Cousin Shane is perfectly fine. I don't even know if I've put my last name out there. I'm afraid it's going to get reported at some point. Maybe warrant checks or something comes in.
So this is where the conversation could get heated. I'm kidding, but I know that you and Mike had an interesting dialogue about A&M versus Kentucky's offense. So you, and let me see if I'm phrasing this correctly, believe more in the Kentucky quarterback situation than you do the A&M wide receiver group. Am I phrasing that correctly? Is that kind of how it all came down?
Well, Mike hit me here right out of the gate with there was some battles that we're going to get to see. Some of them we'll get to see this year, some of them we won't, but it's kind of like gut feel, and one thing that I like about Texas A&M, I love that receiver room. I think they've got the best receiver room in the country. I think they're loaded. It's the Connor Wigman. That's the one that, again, I've seen flashes of it. It can be an awesome dance, but I'm afraid to pull the trigger. Now, Kentucky, right there with you, they've got a dynamic wide receiver room, but it's different. They've just got some X factors, man. I'm thinking about Brown in particular, just super speedy. Don't know exactly what kind of formation you're going to see him. And so when this conversation that we had about these rooms came down to it, it came down to really quarterback for me. Who do I have a little bit more faith in? And again, it was, if you've watched the show, you could tell I was really struggling with this question. And I did lean a little more toward Kentucky on the quarterback.
What about offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen or Bobby Petrino? Who do you lean more there? Because they're both. I mean, Bobby's done it a lot longer and at a higher level, but Liam Cohen's had a very nice run.
Yeah, I love both hires. I think Bobby Petrino was a home run hire, and I'm glad Texas A&M got those guys, got that guy. But Cohen, the one thing that we've seen a track record at this university and what he's been able to do. We don't know exactly what the chemistry between Jimbo and Bobby are going to be. Now, I will tell you, there's a picture floating around. I don't know if you saw it, but there's a picture floating around that had Jimbo with 5 envelopes and notepad and, cocktail napkins from Chili's. I don't know if that was the play. And then there was Bobby Petrino holding one sheet. And that gave me pause and saying, you know what, we're going to be all right down here. So I love both hires. I think when we did our offseason coordinator hires, we both had these guys at A+.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Talking to Cousin Shane here on TexAgs Radio. All right, so who's the better team? Not that they're playing each other, but like at the end of the year, different schedules, the East versus the West. I know all that, but who's going to be the better team?
Kentucky and Texas A&M?
Yeah.
Oh, Aggies, without a doubt. If you switched conferences, if you put Texas A&M in Kentucky's and vice versa, we're making an argument that Georgia's got a serious competition here, because right now when you're looking at the East, especially Kentucky, I don't know if you've looked at their schedule here lately, but there's a real opportunity. I mean, they don't play a tough opponent and quote unquote tough is Florida week 6. So Texas A&M in that West gauntlet is far and beyond. You know what I'm saying? So that's I guess if you're looking at neutral field, these guys meet right now. Who am I favoring? I'm big time Texas A&M.
Cousin Shane with us. All right, so tell us why we should believe the hype when it comes to Tennessee, because you understand the questions, right? Joe Milton, he hasn't really done it. He's kind of done it, but he hasn't sustained it. They got different wide receiver group. I know they got some of the same ones, but Jalen Hyatt's not there. Let's just say that.
Right.
So just in your words, why should we buy the Tennessee stock?
Well,
oh, look at that. Drinking from a Tennessee cup. Look at that.
I am a little bit of a homer myself, but I will say this about Tennessee and Josh Heupel in particular is nobody was talking about Jalen Hyatt 2 years ago. No one was talking about Cedric Tillman and some of these guys that he's put into the league. So I think that's part of the answer to your question is, how can they sustain this? Well, he identified talent that we didn't know was there and made it first-round picks in the NFL draft. So now you're starting to see Tennessee compete with some of the bigger guys like Texas A&M and Alabama and Georgia on the recruiting trail. And that's the sustainable part. That's where Tennessee fell short a couple of years ago, was because they had no depth. You know how it is when you switch from a head coach. Typically, you're going to lose a lot of kids in the portal. You're going to, it's just they're coming in on a program that is most likely losing. So it takes a while to rebuild, but how quickly Tennessee's done it with what they've had to work with is pretty impressive, in my opinion.
All right, so your partner thinks, SEC Mike, thinks that Bama's going to finish third in the West. I can certainly see it. I just had Adam Rittenberg on. I can see them winning it, too. Like, where do you stand when it comes to Bama?
Bama's got a lot of question marks, and this lingering quarterback controversy is at the front of it. And I read the tea leaves. I see these folks coming out saying, "Oh, Nick Saban, he's smiling, he's laughing, watch out." It's like, sometimes I laugh when I'm nervous. It's like, I don't know what that means. I don't know how you're getting that Nick Saban's hiding something there in Alabama. So they're starting a true freshman at tackle. We don't know who the quarterback is. I'm not a huge fan of the offensive coordinator. Me and Mike have talked about this. This SEC West is going to be crazy, man. I think it comes down to 3 teams, A&M, Alabama, LSU. But I think the problem is I am not convinced that Alabama can win an SEC championship or even get to an SEC championship, especially if I don't have confidence in quarterback here.
So, Cousin Shane, what will it take from your perspective, your eyes, for A&M to be that best team in the West? Is it really goes back to the part that you were not ready to push the button on Connor Wigman? If he is elite, top 6 level quarterback in the SEC, are you willing to buy that they could be that team?
Yeah, I think this team goes as far as Connor lets them. And, one thing I love about the Aggies is the depth, something that a lot of teams don't. I mean, you just lost a tight end and you replace it with the number 1 tight end in the country. If you look at 24/7, it's like not a lot of programs have the ability to do that. And I think that's part of the key. I mean, when you're looking at national championship runs, it takes everything falling together at the right time. Some of it is injuries that you can't lose, and some of these are young athletes that you need to emerge and take the reins, like a Connor. I also think that this offense, man, it was frustrating at time last year, and I know you've probably heard it from all the fans, but even from an outsider, man, watching Texas A&M play, sometimes it's like, why is this even a game? Why is Texas A&M Miami a game? You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the key for me, is kind of letting this offense loose a little bit. I've heard from a couple guys down there, that they're implementing a little bit of a faster pace, and they're going to be mixing things up. So do that, man. Be competitive. You've got all the talent in the world. You just need to let it loose and have some fun.
This is impossible. It can't happen because there's no time machine that I know of. There's no DeLorean. But let's just say Bobby Petrino was inserted as the offensive coordinator game 1 last year. What do you think last year's team does? And because they still had their issues, and there were some issues defensively. They were young, but just that change alone. Are we talking about an 8-4 team? Are we talking about a 9-3 team? We're talking about maybe just 7-5.
Brother, last year at SEC Media Days, there was one sucker that put Texas A&M as the SEC champion, and that was this guy. I maybe I was just 1 year early. That's probably my problem here, but I will tell you this: I had a lot of confidence in them last year, and obviously that 22 recruiting class is, they're going to write books about this thing when it's all said and done, but you can't predict some of this stuff, man. Mm-hmm. And I think you've got enough talent this year, and I thought you had enough talent last year. So I'm circling around. If you put Bobby in there, you're definitely making a bowl game. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I would say 8 wins easy. It's just, again, the offenses are changing, man. You look at Tennessee, you look at what Auburn's going to do this year. You're looking at Lane Kiffin. The reason these guys are having success is not so much about the talent that's on that roster. It's about the style that they play. And sometimes you got to change, man. If you don't, you're going to get left behind.
Shane, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I don't know if you have your schedules in front of you or just know enough about these teams, but just play with me for a moment. If you at the end of September, what team in the SEC's fate will be decided? Like, they're out of it. They're whatever we thought they were going to do, they're not in it.
Yeah, I've got it. I've got yours right here, and it's South Carolina, man.
Okay.
South Carolina has to hit the ground running. Not only do they play North Carolina, game day is going to be there. They're not doing it at home. And if you look at their first 5 games, they got North Carolina, Furman, at Georgia, versus Mississippi State, and at Tennessee. Brother, there's a scenario that they start out 1-4. And I don't know how well you're following South Carolina right now, but we got Juice Wells, arguably one of the best players on that team, not even suited up. We got Coach Beamer coming out here saying, yeah, he should be able to go week 1, but what does that mean? I should be able to run a mile, but I can't, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's where we're at with South Carolina is they hit that ground running. They don't have an opportunity to slowly, get into the season here. And there's, like I said, a real scenario. They walk away 1-4.
Shane, what I appreciate about that analysis there is that's not what you're hearing. The national narrative is, South Carolina has arrived, and this is going to be a huge year for them. And can they improve on that 8-win season? Which maybe they will. Like I don't think you're saying that at all. But you are presenting a scenario with that first part of this. They're going to take some punches in that first part of the season. And if Juice Wells isn't ready to go, how do they score?
Yeah. And they're thin, man. And they're thin in pivotal spots, mainly on that offense and defensive line. You can't afford any injuries, and you're going to have them. So that's another concern for me. Now, I do like Spencer Rattler. We got to meet him there in Nashville, and I will say I had my first impression of him. That everybody's seen the videos of when he's over there in Oklahoma, and I thought he'd be this arrogant guy, with his chest out, but he wasn't, man. He was down to earth. And it felt like he was, these high expectations that he's going to have right out of the gate. It felt like he was ready to embrace those, and he's used to doubters. So who knows exactly what this South Carolina roster is going to look like, by week 5. But if, you ask Mike's got him the 8th best quarterback in the SEC. So, he's not high on him either. And I got to see it, brother. And just to say, okay, you beat Tennessee last year, you beat Clemson, you've arrived, you've made it. No, that's lazy talk, man.
So had I asked you this question, and I know you guys talked about it a little bit on the show, in 2022, I think the answer would have been easy. But it's maybe not as easy considering some of the changes. So who's going to have a better offense? Mississippi State with Will Rogers, who's done it at a high level, but obviously Mike Leach is not there. The offense is going to look a little different. Or who's the other team I had for you? Oh, Arkansas with KJ Jefferson. So KJ Jefferson, who I don't think of him as a passer. Dan Enos is going to have him passing a little bit more. But considering that they want to put him on display for the NFL that he can make those throws, and considering that Will Rogers doesn't have Mike Leach and it's going to be a little bit different of approach, how does that play out?
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm a fan of both quarterbacks. I think people are sleeping on Will Rogers. They just think, hey, the Pirates not going to be here. Rest in peace. That they're going to go back to them old Mississippi State ways. And anybody that talks to anybody about it, that program, they're going to be 95% shotgun and airing this thing out. So there's still going to be plenty of offense up there. But if you're comparing the two, I've got to go Arkansas here, man. We're both really high, me and Mike, on the quarterback there. We also think that Rocket Sanders is one of, if not the best running back in the country as well. So having those two in your locker room, it's tough to say that they won't have the most explosive offense out of those two.
Yeah, and speaking of Mississippi State, I know you're pretty passionate about this. This is a team that exceeds expectations, and many times when people think they're down, they find a way to have that season like, oh, look at Mississippi State.
Yeah. A lot of people forget they won 9 games last year. And I mean, you guys got to see it firsthand. If you come ill prepared against Mississippi State, you're going to get I don't know if you can cuss on this show, but you're going to get your rear end, kicked. So, but I will say this about Mississippi State. Some of the reason that they had that success last year was not because of the offense. It was because of that defense. And now they did lose some talent, but they did maintain Zach Arnett. And I think that's, you can't just override that. You can't just overlook that. Zach Arnett is going to put a good defense out there, and he's going to make any game competitive. So yeah, I still, you can't just pencil in Mississippi State as a win or a loss, but you gotta come dialed in, or you're gonna regret it.
How much of a difference does Mason Smith make for LSU healthy again?
Golly, I'll tell you what, Mason, he could be on any roster and he's going to make a difference. I think this is a large human being that just his tangibles alone is going to get him into the NFL. He doesn't have to take another snap, and he's going to be a first round pick. So he's a heck of an athlete, but he's one man and he's coming off an ACL. So we'll see how that looks, but I'm hearing great things in camp. And, they got Florida State right out of the gate, which, that's where he tore his ACL. So I don't know if there's a little revenge factor, but that's a guy I'm definitely going to keep my eyes on when they're playing.
Shane, what about the future SEC teams, Texas and Oklahoma? Are you as high on Texas as most of the national media is? And Oklahoma, do they bounce back from what was a terrible 2022?
Texas. I can't believe we're talking about Texas on this show. I will say this, Oklahoma, I think they're going to be mid pack right now. They're going to have a lot of work to do to be SEC ready. And you know how it is when you guys came over here and I watched that Johnny Manziel documentary and a lot of people talk about that Florida game, but I think that was an eye opener. It's different in this conference, and it finally started recruiting toward that, and you guys are set. But Texas, I think, is a little bit further ahead, but just to pencil them in as a top 25 team is just a lazy take. I think the reason they're so high now is because the path to a potential college football playoff is easier for them than it is, let's say Texas A&M. So, I'm really going to be. I can't wait to see the Alabama game, because I think Bama, got punched in the mouth last year. And now they're coming into Tuscaloosa, and we'll get to see just how good they are. But I embrace it, man. I got a lot of Texas. I got more Texas A&M followers just than I do Texas, obviously, because of the SEC. But I see them chirping, man. I love it. That's why we love college football, is because these heated rivalries. And like I said, that video they put out the other day, I mean, that's a kick in the mouth, and you can't fix that until next year. And you talk about most anticipated games. Me and Mike, we're hopefully, fingers crossed, going to be down there when Texas and Texas A&M face off.
The dude who wrote the tweet, I'm just guessing here, wasn't even a Texas person when that game happened. It was so long ago. That's what they hold on to, because it's been so long. Like, I know it's been a rough couple of years. They've missed on pretty much every coach since then. So, well, if that's what they want, that's what they get.
It's been a while. I see Tucker in the NFL. I'm like, oh man, he's still there. So I know that game's been forever ago.
Hey Shane, man, this was fun. Let's do it again. All right.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate you, cousin Shane there, that SEC podcast. And hey, tell Mike, it's all love here. All right.
Yeah, I'll tell him. He's working out right now in case he meets you at the next media days.
Well, it's going to take a while. Trust me, all right? Just kidding, Shane.
All
Thanks,
right.
man.
See you, brother.
Later, man. All right, let's take a moment right now for Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 and Caldwell online. CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com is the website. Almost dropped my water bottle here. So when you're looking for a new vehicle, there's a lot of questions. Like, I know, like, you can look at a bunch of websites. Look at this place and look at that place. There's nothing like going on the lot and smelling a new car and, like, you know, and then the salesman say, oh, I can see you driving that. Hey, look, there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet, there's not going to be that salesman. That I can guarantee you. But you are going to get a pleasant experience. You're going to have a great experience, even beyond pleasant, right? You can start your search online at CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com and see the selection that they have, right? And then you see the pricing, and you're like, oh, yeah, I want to check that out. And then when you go in person, you'll be blown away with the customer service. You'll be blown away with the selection on the lot. You'll be blown away with the kind of treatment you're going to get after, because they'll explain it to you, how their service plan works and how they have complimentary pickup for their service vehicles. And just the whole experience will be top-notch, and you're going to get a great trade-in value for your vehicle. That's what you can expect when you go to Caldwell Country Chevrolet. It is not a far drive. We're talking 15 minutes, Brian to Caldwell, a short conversation away, but you're going to see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with our friends there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online. CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. So I enjoyed my conversation with Shane. He just seems like a nice guy. Like, the way you saw him on the air was how he was there in Nashville. Just a smiling, happy-go-lucky guy. When he introduced himself to us, he was kind of like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, it was funny, all because I was really mean a year ago. And by the way, I shouldn't have been mean, but I was, and it was fun. So it is what it is. He brought up the whole Texas social media thing. You saw it, right, Luke, where they posted the Justin Tucker field goal?
Yes, I did, for 19 days away.
Yeah. It's whatever. I don't care what the social media team does. Some guy who probably didn't play sports. It's fine. He can do that. That being said, if you're a Texas fan, I can see why you'd like that. But I don't feel like, and tell me if I'm wrong here, Luke, they don't, like, A&M social media team not very often trolls others, do they? Or am I wrong about that?
In general, I know they keep it very respectful, but the one example that I can think of was a couple off seasons ago when Jimbo said that he was going to beat Nick Saban while he was at Alabama. And then Nick Saban heard that comment and was like, in what? Golf? And then after we beat Alabama a couple months later, the win graphic, like with the final score on it, was of a golf card. And the football team tweeted that out. And that was probably one of their most successful posts. I absolutely loved it. I think trolling is appropriate in some instances,
Sure.
But I 100% agree with their strategy of, like, it's about A&M not poking fun at the other team. And I think our social media team keeps it very professional.
Well, and here's the thing. Like, by the way, I like it. Like, you know, I've worked with other organizations. I know the Rockets got in trouble years back. The Mavs have gotten in trouble. These things happen. But what you got to be careful, and you really have to be careful, the social media team is not the football team, right? So when a social media team picks a fight with another program, that then becomes bulletin board material for the football team you're about to play. So, like, it's not like Sark co-signs that or whatever. Like then you're not the one who's going to have to pay the bill later. The social media team isn't, right? Now, you could get in trouble for it, sure, but, like, you're not the one who has to pay the bill later. The bill, it will be paid by your team, and they're going to have to back that up. Now, there are some teams that can back it up. But, like, I personally have a hard time trolling if you are a mediocre team. And I think 8 wins is mediocre. 5-7 is an atrocity, but 8 wins is mediocre. Is that a fair assessment?
That's absolutely fair.
But I also think if you're Georgia, you're too good to troll. So what's the right place to troll? Like, I think if you're a 10-2 team and you're kind of trolling up to the team you're chasing, I think it's appropriate then. If you're a 5-win team, I don't think you can troll unless you beat LSU. Did they do anything for the LSU game?
I don't think so. I agree with you. I think trolling from a fan perspective is okay, but it coming from like the official verified account, I don't think should be happening. And like trolling down is
It's not good either.
no, it's just not a good look. Like if we were to beat Arkansas again for what, the 10th time in 11 years, I would hope that we would be above like our official social media account trolling them even further. It's enough that we're beating them. I don't think our official team account needs to be rubbing that in.
Yeah, no, I remember how much, and my partner was one of them, and I don't mean this rude towards OB, but like OB, whenever people would bring up Texas 2 years ago, he'd go, Kansas, right? And it was funny. I loved it. Unfortunately, what can people say about us?
I don't even want to say, but it is shortened for application.
Yeah, application, the state of application.
Yeah.
So, like, but that they both make sense. They're both in good fun. It's just unfortunate. Like, when you throw something out there, the boomerang effect, be careful. A couple months later, it could hit you in the face.
And that's the beauty of social media, is that you can say one thing and be on top of the world, and then 6 months later, someone's rubbing it in your face. So,
but as Shane said there, I think that's the beauty of college sports, right?
oh yeah.
So, like, this is why we do it. Like, if you have tough skin, if you have thin skin, it can be tough. But if you have tough skin where you're like, you win some, you lose some. When it's my turn, I punch. And when I take the punch, I just kind of take the punches and move on. Like, don't take it too personal. It's hard, though, on social media not to take it personal. It's hard. Like, you can't wait. Like, I know there are people, because I see it on Billy's mentions all the time, that can't wait for just one little thing to come and tweet at him. Anything. Oh, yeah? I'm coming after Billy Lucci on this one. I'm coming after A&M on this one. I can't wait. This is my life. I like to troll. I'm a trolly troll. I apologize for that act of a troll. That's one I'll hear from Billy later. What was that about? All right, we'll come back with more. I've got a couple thoughts from Jimbo's presser yesterday. I was not actually there at the presser. I had to go back and listen to it. I had a doctor's appointment in Houston, caught up with it. And I just kind of want to talk a little bit about team chemistry. And we'll go a little bit more into the Donovan Green thing. We can get to your text messages on the hotline, 979-693-1150. A lot of stuff to get into. It's TexAgs Radio. TexAgs Radio. Do you know you're listening to the show if I don't tell you? I think you do. Presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the hotline. We've got a special guest, Billy Lucci, TexAgs co-owner, executive editor, joining us on the show. Good morning, Billy.
What's going on?
How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you, David? I just heard you melting down, and I was like,
what was I melting down
Let me
about?
throw him a lifeline for this segment.
What?
Let me throw him a lifeline for this segment. Him and Luke are like, it was like just watching somebody just take a fish and just throw it on shore, and just people just sitting there watching, not doing anything. And I said, let me grab this fish and throw it back into the ocean where it belongs. And for you, that means a guest to talk. I heard you start screaming. You said the words trolley troll. I'm a little trolley troll. And I was like, I got to call.
It's interesting, Billy. The reaction that I got.
There was a meltdown. There was a full-blown meltdown.
See, I think you look for it. You are the definition of the trolley troll that I was talking about. You find anything you can. You are like the people who tweet at you from the University of Texas with me. That's who you've become.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Oh, it was Dalton again?
I was alerted. No. No, I wanted to actually call in real quick, and I didn't know you had this much open space. I wanted to talk a little Donovan Green, a little Denver Harris, things like that. By the way, first of all, I don't know what y'all were rambling about this morning, like, got to happen this year. We don't care about the future. Aggies are tired of it. We want to hear about this year. No one wants. The dude meaning Jimbo, is sitting there just talking about Donovan Green and how he'll bounce back and he'll recover from the ACL. It was like, nobody wants to hear about next year. It's about this year. It's like, what are you guys rambling about?
What do I get blamed?
Well, because you let Olin drag you into this rage, this like nonsensical rage that it was like misplaced and mistimed. Like, I agree, it's all about this year and it has to happen this year. But then you're like, well, there won't even be a next year. But it's like, well, for Donovan Green there will. Geez. like this guy. I mean, Jimbo's just trying to say, my player who just got hurt, who you just asked about,
Hey,
he'll bounce back. He's that kind of kid.
we've got a lot of interns now because we're awesome.
You can tell I've enjoyed the show.
Yeah, I can tell. Goodness gracious. So, like, sometimes I wonder, like, am I the right guy for the job? That being said, Billy, I'm going to make sure that our interns analyze every radio hit you have across the country, and I'm going to find some great intel because all I do is give you compliments. Those days are over, my friend. Hey, but very good job on the documentary. You did really good. Anyway.
Well, listen, really, I was talking to Donovan, and look, that's a big hit for the Aggies. I think Donovan was one of the more impactful true freshmen in that class last year. If you assume he was going to take a step forward, which as hard as he works and as much as he cares, I think that was a very safe assumption. He would have been a nice weapon in that offense. He's so tall. There's so much length. He's got good hands. Made some clutch catches last year for the Aggies. We talked, when we had him on the 23 and 23, the touchdowns against LSU and Bama. And I think he could have done a lot more in the passing game this year. As a blocker, I think he had still a ways to go there. Sometimes it's harder for those longer armed, leaner guys. And he was making strides, though, for sure. And I think if you would have said to me, who's A&M's best tight end, I would say Donovan Green. Who's their most experienced would be Max and Donovan in that order. However, I don't think and this is not a knock on Donovan, but I think around the country, as usual, people, I watched Barstool Sports send out a tweet talking about what a massive loss Matthew Wyckoff was. Anybody that watched A&M play last year knew, and anybody that watched the spring ball knew, the fall knew that without Bryce Foster, that was a massive drop-off at play at center, and it was devastating for the offensive line. And they also knew that Wyckoff would have been a nice depth guy to have because of his experience, because type kid he is, 300-plus pound body. Of course, you didn't just want him to go and leave him play Cal, but the way they made it sound, I thought, Georgia or Alabama were going to scoop him up on day one. But when the reality, and the reality of this is I think Donovan is your best tight end. But I don't think it was a massive gap between some of these other guys that are now going to have to step up. And look, they're going to have to step up because, like y'all said, Jake Johnson hasn't played a lot. He did get his feet wet last year, though. Theo really hasn't played much of any at all. And he's still less than 2 years removed from playing football overseas. American football in a place where they don't play American football typically. And Jaden Platt's a true freshman, and Fernando Garza hasn't played yet. So there's a lot of unknown, but there's a lot to work with there. But I do think you lost your most capable guy as of today. And I think, now, is depth a problem at tight end? No. But what happens if one more guy gets hurt? And guess what? Max has been hurt a lot. Jake has been banged up his first year here. So it is something just that you keep an eye on, and you never want to see. You never want to lose a starter. You never want to see depth hit. But I think even with Donovan, you were looking at a lot of not a lot, but at least 3 tight ends are going to play a lot of football this year. In Jake, Donovan, and Max, and maybe even more so with Theo, who now he kind of becomes a guy that you circle and go, okay, get him ready. The talent's there. Jimbo talked about him in the scrimmage the other day. The talent's there. Get him ready. And it's his time. So there are positions where I've been a lot more, not upset, but a lot more concerned if you lost somebody than tight end. That doesn't change the fact that, Donovan Green, you lost a guy that I think could have been your best player at the position.
Billy, since we have you on the air, we did 23 and 23, and we did Fidel Diggs today, brought to you by the Charge Apparel. Any thoughts you can give us on Fidel's impact there, getting to the quarterback, and how much it was missed last year and how much they'll need it this year?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've talked so much about the need for that pass rush, and the one guy, I mean, you go, he had, what did he have, 3 or 4 sacks against Bama and South Carolina combined. I heard y'all say 3 today, so maybe one of those didn't count. I thought he had 3 against Bama, maybe it was just 2, and 1 against South Carolina, but he was all over the quarterback in those 2 games, and then gets hurt, and then, he's done for the year, and we don't see him, so if there's a guy capable of double-digit sacks on this season, you'd think it might be the returning starter, the guy that was making an impact before he was injured last year, and the guy that Bama couldn't handle. We always talk about the young guys like Enow White, Malik Filla. I talk about Overton a lot, but realistically, a lot of times you want to factor in experience of the guys that people are talking most about. So, yeah, Fadil Diggs could very well be that guy for A&M. And I think the Aggies need him to be. They need him to be. And he's a leader as well, so that always helps. Speaking of, we were talking a minute ago about that class. Denver Harris, there's news at LSU coming up. I don't wish ill will or misfortune on any of these kids, especially the ones that came in, guys like Denver, Smoke, that came in with them were easy to deal with for us, or, they were pleasant when they'd come in. But the reality is, you look now across the board, and everybody, here's the problem, is everyone wants to make such a big deal about A&M and Jimbo and that class and everything falling apart and all this. Now, we've talked about what they really lost in terms of guys that would play this year. And I still go back and say the only one, and hell, it was a pretty big one, even though they're loaded position, was Anthony Lucas. P.J. Williams is making a push now at SMU. You had no chance to keep him because of the arrest. I think otherwise he might have been able to stay on, but he got arrested after the locker room incident. The A&M locker room is so much better off, and I won't say who, but a couple of those guys even tried to come back and return. And just the team chemistry in the locker room is too good right now to bring any of that in there. And look, I got my questions about Harold Perkins and his presence in the locker room or in a program. I could be completely wrong. That's just my opinion. I've got questions about that based on what I saw in his recruitment. And you throw him, and Denver goes there. And here's the thing. All those guys are buddies that cover LSU, people on Twitter. They all had a massive celebration. Like it was just some major coup for Brian Kelly, because they'll do anything they can to see any misfortune with Jimbo. Jimbo lives in LSU fans' heads rent-free, and even more so with some of the media that cover LSU. They are obsessed with wanting to see that guy fail and to see A&M fail. And then they'll tell you it's not a rivalry. But they may as well plan the parade route when they got Denver Harris. And same thing with Lane Kiffin strutting around, running his pie hole about Chris Marshall and in the spring game, how he's trying to teach him, that they play with tempo there and they don't wait, spend 30, 45 seconds. Everything he said in both those programs maybe should have had the same caution flags up that, in fairness, A&M should have had up when they recruited the guys. And I see people even today saying, well, that still speaks to Jimbo, that those guys that they took. No, it's a lesson learned. And you look at how A&M's recruited in this past class and in this current class, and I don't see any guys that you just go, red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag. And you would have said that, yes. There were programs that felt that way about a lot of these guys that are no longer with the team. But there were serious red flags with some of them. And I think that was a lesson learned for Fisher and the Aggies that, hey, when momentum really gets going, don't get caught up that all of a sudden you can get this guy that you didn't think you could get, when the reality is sometimes you might be better off without them. And the same thing goes for when recruiting's not going very good for a stretch and you go, oh, I want to go take this guy because he's a problem, but damn, he's talented and we need that talent in this class right now. You don't do that either. And I think there was a lesson learned there, and I think you can tell by how the Aggies are recruiting. But again, the 3 guys that were the most high profile that transferred within the division, or within the conference, and the two guys that you thought you were going to be playing against, you go, man, I want to play against that corner. He's really good. I want to play against that receiver. He's going to make plays in that offense. I wish he would have gone somewhere else. Well, guess what? You're not playing against them unless they're at Louisiana, Louisiana Monroe this year. But you're not playing against them. So maybe a little less sticking your chest out over there in Baton Rouge and Oxford next time around.
Billy, thank you, sir.
Hi, David. Glad I could hop in and join you today. You're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you so much for the kind words. You did great there, part of the analysis.
I've listened. I listen every day.
Oh, first time, long time. Thank you so much, Billy.
I bet.
Later. Billy Lucci on the hotline. All right, when we come back here on TexAgs Radio, there's a story that I've seen the headlines I don't know enough about. I'm going to have Luke research the Michael Orr story because I'm a little confused by it. I'll ask a question. That and more is TexAgs Radio. All right, so I've noticed on my social media, Luke, tell me if this is true. I get every day an advertisement for Tommy Chung's gummies. Every day. I thought advertisements were based on your algorithm. I'm not part of the gummy community, not a part of the weed community. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Not my thing. Does it show up on everybody's? Is this like, are you getting Tommy Chung 5 times a day?
That does not show up on mine, David.
Okay, what the heck? I'm just curious. Like, I didn't click anything.
Okay, I mean, look, I'm not here to comment on what your normal activities are, but they tend to be, like if I'm talking about I want to go swimming, next thing I know, I'm getting an ad for like sunscreen or like a bathing suit.
Right.
So that's all I'm going to say about that.
But I don't Google that.
I know, so that is somebody
maybe
hacking
there's somebody
your
in
phone?
the office is doing it.
Whoa,
It's like every day.
That's an allegation.
I just scroll and like, what? Why is Tommy Chung on my timeline? So the Michael Orr story, explain it to me. He is now claiming that the movie The Blind Side was a farce, and the family that adopted him actually made millions off his name while he made nothing. Am I got that right?
Yes. So he allegedly signed away the rights to his life story. The document has a signature that appears to be his, but he claims that nobody ever presented this document to him with any explanation.
The movie was made in 2009. What year is it right now?
2023.
Okay. I'm not saying he's not telling the truth, by the way. I just don't understand why we didn't hear about it when the movie came out. Didn't he do press for that movie?
I think he was well out of college when this was released.
Yeah. So, like, why are we hearing about it now? That's the part I don't understand. Like, I mean, why are we hearing about it not then, when it happened? Like, this happened a long time ago. Like, I just don't understand. Like, by the way, everybody, that movie, not so true.
My only speculation may be that maybe the court system is slow and this has been something that he's been working on and it's just now coming up. But I do agree that 14 years is a really long time to not say anything about the truth of the story.
Yeah, I don't get it as well. It is what it is. All right, so here's the deal, guys. We had a fun show today. Appreciate all of our good guests. How about Cousin Shane? You give him an A?
A+. I don't have a cousin named Shane, but I think I need one after that interview.
How about Luke with highlights? Was he good?
He'll work on it.
How about Andy McRae, the coach there at Needville?
Incredible. What a story.
Yeah. Shireen Williams?
Always incredible.
Jack Tripper?
Yeah, he was great too, from Three's Company.
He was. Hey, I do know this. Tomorrow on the program, we're going to talk to Josh Sneed there from, was it not SEC
Shorts.
Yeah, SEC Shorts. Sorry, I was saying it wrong. We're going to have him on the program. He's going to be on. I think John Harris is going to be on. We love John Harris. People love transcribing him, too, because he says such little, so not that much. We'll also talk to, Ryan Broniger. He's a friend of ours. We'll talk to Bronny and more. It is TexAgs Radio. We will see you mañana.